on so that we can count your attendance as part of our regulations. We need to make sure that we have the camera on during most of the. Thank you so much. With this, we're going to do a few ground rules when they're posted, just as a reminder to all who are watching the meeting. You have the ground rules. If not, please raise your hand. We're gonna be very simplistic. Okay, thank you, Angel. No one may speak until granted the floor. CB11 members, if you have a question about board business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand and wait to be recognized. To raise your hand through Zoom, click the participants icon and you will find the raise there. Members should not engage in a back and forth discussion. The chair will recognize the next person to speak. The chat should not be used to discuss or pose questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record. Please keep your questions and comments brief and on topic to the discussion. Members of the public, thank you for attending. If you have a question or comment about the subjects on the agenda, please raise your hand and wait to be recognized. With that, we are going to move on to announcements and updates. Are there any announcements that anyone would like to make at this point in time?
Well,
Christina?
yes, I can. I'm reporting as a community liaison for Assemblymember Eddie Gibbs' office. We are having a Mother's Day event on May 16th at 55 East 115th Street. It's going to be from 1 to 4 p.m.
Thank you so much. This community liaison for Eddie Gibbs. Is there anyone else who'd like to make an announcement? If not, we're going to go on.
I'm sorry, again, we're having a town hall
Okay.
on May 8th. I'm sorry, I wasn't ready for that.
A town hall?
Yes, we'll be having several town halls the rest of this month. I just need to pull up the flyer and I can give you the exact information. The town halls are made to discuss issues that residents are having in their individual developments. So, wait a minute. Okay, we're having a town hall at Normandy Court on Thursday, June 11th, from 6 to 7:30 p.m. at PS 198.
What is the event?
Issues residents are having in their development that they would like to, yes, that they would like to discuss. We're also having a town hall at Jefferson, for Jefferson houses. It's going to be held at the PS 57 I'm sorry, that one was canceled. Franklin Plaza is going to be held at Tito Puente Auditorium at 240 East 109th Street on May 22nd from 5:30 to 7:30.
From 5:30 to 7:30?
Yes, ma'am.
And that's gonna be where?
Yes, 240 East 109.
So what's the agenda for that one?
Same issues. We're having multiple town halls at four different developments to discuss issues they're having. It started with 1199, which was because they were having issues with Con Edison. And so we've been finding that people have been complaining about now having to pay Con Edison, rents are being raised, and there are multiple issues in their apartments. So we're having town halls to try to help people with these issues.
Can I go back to the first one, the PS 198?
That's the Normandy.
That was Normandy Court, yes. That's gonna be Thursday, June 11th, from 6 to 7:30 p.m. The address is 1700 3rd Avenue. 1700. It's at the corner of 95th and 3rd. Okay, thank you.
Any other announcements? I was so excited to start our meeting so we could get going that I skipped adoption of the agenda. Is there, motion to adopt by Candy, is there any issues with the agenda? Nobody has a problem, we can adopt as written. And adoption of the minutes,
Motion to accept.
motion to accept. Any issues?
second?
No?
No issue.
Okay. Thank you so much for your patience. We are now moving on to presentations and discussions. The first one is a project update on Ascendant's PAC portfolio in CD11. Thank you for those who are coming to, talk about this. Chris Cirillo, how are you? This is Nilsa.
Good.
How's it going?
Good. Can you hear me, Nelsa?
Oh, we can hear you perfectly.
Great. So thank you for inviting us to come back and talk about our two PACT projects. So for anyone who doesn't know me already, my name is Chris Cirillo. I am the Executive Director and President of Ascendant Neighborhood Development Corporation, a nonprofit affordable housing provider based in East Harlem. And we are here tonight to provide an update on two PACT projects involving several NYCHA developments in East Harlem. So Ascendant is a partner in two different PACT teams, and we have representatives from both of those teams here to answer specific questions and provide updates about those two projects. So I'll just give a quick overview, and then I'll turn it over to members from each team to kind of walk through where we stand with each of them at this point. So for our PACT Round 10 project, which involves the Gaylord White Houses and Metro North Plaza, our joint venture development partner on that is the Community Builders, and Brian Backscheider from TCB is here tonight, as well as other members of our team. So that project converted through the NYCHA's PACT program in September of last year. We have several months now of our team, which includes TCB as the joint venture partner, MDG Design and Construction as the contractor, and Wavecrest Management as the property manager, managing those two developments. And then for PACT Round 11, we are partnered with Via Development, and Melissa Bindra from Via Development is here this evening. Via is our joint venture partner and is the lead development partner on that project. And that project also includes L&M Development as the contractor and CNC Management as the property manager. That project converted through the PACT program in December of last year. So again, we are now post-conversion on both projects, and the property management companies that are part of each of those teams have now taken over property management from NYCHA. And so we are managing the developments, and the initial stages of rehab work has started in both PACT projects. So I'm going to turn it over at this point to Brian Backscheider from TCB. And we have we have slide decks for both of the projects. I know the committee members are pretty familiar with each of them. We can kind of go through them as quickly as you want to. I know you have other items on the agenda. I'm sure you're pretty familiar with the developments at this point, and we want to leave maximum time for any questions that committee members or members of the public who are joining this evening have about the projects and where we are in the process. So Brian, if you want to come on camera.
Brian, where are you?
Sorry. I'm sorry. I lost the button. I'm here. I promise.
Brian. Okay.
Hi, Nilsa. How are you?
How you doing, Brian?
I'm good. I'm good. Do you guys have the slide deck up, or would it be helpful if I shared my screen?
You should share it.
Okay. One moment. Sorry, let me pull this up.
I see you have your assistant.
Oh, is he? Yeah, are you sticking your head in there? Yeah, how's it go?
Oh, that's fine, that's fine. That's absolutely perfect.
He's very excited to see you all.
Oh, we were excited to see him too.
Okay. Apologies for the delay here.
Do you want me to share it, Brian?
Victor, if you got it, yeah, if you got it up, that would be great.
Yeah, I have a PDF version I can show.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that.
Victor, you coming on camera too?
You heard me.
Great. Thank you, Victor.
Mm-hmm.
And of
Yes,
course I
yes.
can come on camera, Nilsa. Of course I can. Let me get a little. Oh. Is that fine?
Yeah, I think it's great. All right. So yeah, thank you for having us back. I can quickly go through. I think the first slides here are really about the PACT program, just to give you a quick reminder, although I think you guys are pretty familiar at this point. And again, so I'm Brian Backscheider from the Community Builders. I'm the lead on the Metro North and White project. Of course, we all got here because NYCHA has significant, overwhelming capital needs, and not much of the ability to fund those repairs. So through the RAD program, the projects have converted to project-based Section 8, which has allowed us to unlock some funding to complete necessary repairs at Metro North and White houses. Go ahead, Victor. And you can keep going. I think, and through this, what's important, obviously to acknowledge is that the tenants still pay the same 30% of their income for rent. They still have protections, and through NYCHA as a sort of an enforcement arm, and but they also get new professional management, in our case through Wavecrest Property Management. I think Chris did a good job with team introductions, so we can keep moving. So Metro North is a three-building family complex, along with Gaylord White, a standalone senior building, is a total of 516 units. We are repairing necessary infrastructure and upgrading apartments inside the complex, as well as building new laundry rooms, upgrading tenant association rooms, and upgrading amenity spaces, most notably the landscaping around the buildings. As Chris mentioned, we converted in late September. We are now sort of in between, or I guess just past this first dot. The renovations have started inside the apartments at 310 East 102nd Street. We've completed the first phase, first of 12 phases of the renovation. So those households were temporarily relocated to other vacant units within Metro North Plaza, and then they've been moved back to their permanent apartments. And at Gaylord White, we've been working on upgrades in the common areas to the utilities of the building, which is necessary before we start doing in-apartment renovations later this year. Oh, and yeah, and here's some photos. This is the new kitchens at Metro North and the new heating systems. And then not shown here is the elevator replacement work, which I think the residents are very excited about, which is in progress at 2 of the 4 buildings. So in addition to sort of taking over the day-to-day operations, collecting rent, addressing work orders, doing sort of the regular property management. I wanted to highlight the efforts of the Wavecrest team around site security. And so at all four buildings, when we took over the properties in September, the doors to the properties were not secured. They were wide open. There was a lot of instances of individuals just coming in from the street and causing problems in the buildings. Now all the buildings have locked front doors. We have installed security guards at all four buildings over the night hours. They're stationed in the lobbies, and then they do also patrols through the building. And we've also stepped up our coordination with PSA 5 and who do regular verticals through the buildings and are also in close contact whenever we have problems in the buildings. They're close calls, and they respond quickly when we've had incidents. One of the first things we've done is to install security cameras throughout the lobbies and exteriors of the building. This is a small step. There's going to be even a more robust camera system installed during the renovation. But that's allowed us to, in real time, see some of the issues and be able to address them quickly. We've also alarmed the roof doors and the egress back exterior doors so that we know if someone's using those doors and we can address it. And I think most notably on our sites at Metro North Plaza, where there's been prior to the conversion and post, there was a significant encampment behind 345 East 101st Street. That area has now been secured. The area has construction fencing and an egress gate for emergency access to control the flow of people into that area so that it's really just for residents using that egress path. And we don't have the issue of the encampment behind the building. Our community life team is fully engaged doing on social service. These are a couple of pictures, one on each from each site. I think these are both bingo nights that were well attended by residents of the building. But in addition to sort of the fun and socializing aspect, there's also been working closely to address any concerns around the renovations, around the new management, addressing rent payment issues, and also some life skills. We had a job fair at Metro North Plaza recently that was well attended, where folks were able to sign up for interest with a university for taking some classes and things of that nature. So a lot going on, and we have Jerry Puente, who's the property manager for Metro North and White, on the call, so he can also answer more questions.
Okay.
And that's us. You know where to find us.
Don't say that, Brian. We know where to find you.
You and Nelson definitely know where to find us.
Thank you so much for your presentation. With that, I'm going to open it up for questions. Would anybody like to start? Christina?
Good evening. Thank you for your presentation. You said that you were able to unlock funding. Where does your funding come from?
So through the PACT conversion, we're able to the funding comes from a couple places. There's subsidy from the city, and then there's also we're able to obtain a mortgage through Freddie Mac, and that debt then allows us to do this capital improvement work.
Can you explain what Freddie Mac is?
They're a mortgage lender that provides affordable debt for social affordable housing and affordable housing.
Okay, and you've put new appliances into every unit. Are the appliances energy efficient?
Yes, so as we do the renovations, there will be new appliances. Yes, they are all energy efficient appliances.
Right, thank you.
You're
Go ahead.
Oh, no, that's fine. Are there any current delays or issues with construction so far?
So the first phase, we did hit a little bit of delays that were a result of permitting. Some of the processes at DOB have been slow recently, but we're still on schedule for the overall project.
Thank you. So the other question I have is, you've mentioned that, there's different roles for each partner. I think I'm correct on that one. Can you give us a specific role for each partner? Because a lot of us, even myself, I do not know the roles of each partner.
Yeah, that's great. Victor, do you want to go back after that slide with all the partners involved?
Of course.
Oh, you passed it.
Yes, I did. Passed it. Right here.
Right there. Okay. So there's a development team of Ascendant and the community builders. And so we're really leading overall and making sure that the project is meeting all of the design requirements, the financing obligations, and that operationally things are operating, effectively. But then MDG is the general contractor, and so they're leading on the construction, and we're overseeing and making sure that that construction is happening in, an appropriate way. And then Wavecrest is the property manager, and so they're running the day-to-day operations at the building.
Okay, I don't have any other questions right now.
Christina?
Okay, I've heard your name before, CNC Management and Wavecrest. I have several questions. So first question is, how many developments do you currently have in your roster?
Well, so I work with the community builders, and so I'm happy to respond for the community builders as a developer. But if you're interested in Wavecrest on the property management side, I'd maybe let Jerry provide answers there.
It's on the slide, right? Wavecrest has over 4,700 pack units.
Do you know
Uh,
how many individual developments that is?
I'm not 100% certain on how many developments we're working with. I know that it is about 4,700 units that make up the the full portfolio. But I'm not 100% sure how many actual projects, pack projects, we're currently involved in. I think it's somewhere around, if I were to guess, it would be somewhere around like 12.
How many of those are complete?
Ocean Bay is completed. Matanzas is also completed. And I think Williamsburg is just about completed as well.
So as I'm also a tenant association president, and as a president, I hear from other developments, other TA presidents, and in recent conversations with some people who have been addressed by CNC and L&M management, there hasn't been a lot of conversation about things that are happening that people are really enjoying with this company. So I've heard such things as some of the materials that are being used are less than par. Management that is on the ground is not doing their job as they should. Can you explain why that is?
Sorry, if I could jump in, if the questions are regarding CNC management, that is the other PACT project that is going to present tonight.
Okay.
All right, I want to recognize our chair of the board, Adem Briha. He has a couple of questions.
I'll just ask one now and then
Okay.
one at the end. So in terms of these properties or wherever Wavecrest is involved, I'm assuming the management company would be responsible for handling any evictions, should there be evictions? Is that correct?
That's correct.
And could you tell me roughly in these PAC projects that you guys done, these 12 PAC projects, when you initially went in, what percent of evictions there were roughly?
So we haven't actually done any evictions yet.
In any of your properties that you're doing with the 4,700 units?
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to answer that question. As far as the evictions for the other properties, I can let you know that we haven't done any here at Metro yet. But yeah, I can't really tell you how many evictions we've done at the other projects.
Well, I gotta follow up to that.
No, of course.
I guess my concern is I've asked Ascendant and maybe other groups involved here for months now to give us the criteria for what would result in an eviction. For example, how in arrears would a tenant have to be in rent, how many months, what are the triggers for evictions? And I know that's whatever information is accurate or not, there's a big concern in this community that when these projects go into these conversions, that eviction rates go up considerably. Now, I'm not saying that that's true or not. I know the comptroller released a report that said it was. I've heard conflicting things, but my concern is why haven't you guys been able to give us this information? Because if what I've heard is that they're not going up, and I believe people involved in these projects have said that, then I would be very eager to share that information. Or is there somewhere where it's available? And if that's the case, I don't think that that's being disseminated or told clearly. So I think that's been a big concern of mine, and I'm struggling to understand why this board itself hasn't been able to be provided with that when it's been asked for at least 6 months now. And that question could be for anybody on this call, I think.
Well, I'll jump in as a member of both teams. Obviously the conversions just happened last fall. So, specific to either of these projects, we're still very early on in each of our teams managing the properties. In terms of overall in the PACT program since it began, obviously NYCHA has data on that. The comptroller did do a report, and I believe NYCHA prepared a lengthy response and partial rebuttal to that. So, I mean, there is a lot of information out there about evictions. Obviously, it's an ongoing process.
I'm sorry, I gotta cut you off. That's not where I said the information was lacking. I just asked specific to Wavecrest. My question about the information that was lacking was, you guys must have know what is gonna be the threshold for evictions, whether you've done them or not. When this property start to result in evictions, what are the criteria to evict the people that are there?
I mean, Jerry, can you address that?
Yeah, so for a non-pay, it's 90 days to start a legal action against a resident for non-pay. And for a nuisance behavior, it's immediate. We start a holdover to start a legal action against them.
And the definition of nuisance behavior is what exactly, or is that just a standard thing that's across any type of property?
Like
private?
an apartment that is housing drug addicts, things like that, nuisance behavior with water negligence, noise negligence, things of the sort.
Water negligence, you mean someone who's running their water too much?
Well, allowing their water to overflow and leak onto the apartments below and cause damages.
And one more question, when you say drug addicts, what do you guys define as a drug addict? Someone that does drugs?
Well, yeah, so like someone who's allowing, you know, addicts from the street that we're noticing are using drugs, abusing drugs, going into the unit and doing drugs, addicts in that sort of capacity.
Do you have a follow? Because if not, I have.
Well, I guess, so let me be clear, if someone lived in the property and was the actual tenant of record and they had a drug problem, that would result in an eviction? Because there are people that live in private buildings that do drugs in them and they keep it to themselves and they're not gonna be evicted. I understand letting people in that are not supposed to be there. I'm talking about the actual tenant. It just
Like-
seems like a very, very broad eviction rule to me.
For instance, like if they're allowing people that are stealing packages and from the lobby to pay for their addiction, things like that.
Yeah, I think this is, it's really, I think to add on to what Jerry, I think is trying to get to, it's really about disrupting the building for especially for others, or damaging the building, or making the building unsafe for others. Like those are the issues that would, escalate.
No, I mean, listen, I totally understand there needing to be mechanisms in place to evict people when it's needed. My last question is, who determines these parameters? Is it on a property by property, management by management basis? Or has there been given by NYCHA or whoever is giving the funding some parameters that you guys must follow? So are you determining what results in an eviction, or are you being given a mandate? And if so, by who?
I'm not aware of a specific mandate. I think it's at the property level. The one thing that Jerry didn't mention is that there is a mandate for an eviction outreach process, for all the PAX projects. This isn't, if we have to start a legal action, it's not going to happen in a vacuum. It's going to be after repeated outreach and discussion with the tenants, and making them aware of the potential, sending notices, setting up meetings, working with, in our case, a community life team, the social service provider on site, to try to address these things before they get to the point of needing to start a legal action, which could potentially end in eviction.
Okay, thank you.
Just a question, because I remember when Pac Rad first became a thing, and I was chair at the time, multiple years ago. I remembered at that time that when the first projects were done, and it happened to be in the Bronx, and I can't remember what the name, where when an eviction process was going to happen, that the tenant, that NYCHA would still have like oversight or discussions with the property management team, and where the tenants at that time were given the impression that if they disagreed, that NYCHA was still that level that they can almost appeal to in terms of their situation. Because NYCHA still has almost like that oversight, does that still come into play, or has the idea of how the tenant reacts and interacts with the new agencies that are in charge of their development, has that changed? Or is it everything that's gonna go through Wavecrest, let's say, if
No,
it's a Wavecrest development?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Nelsa. That still exists. Actually, I think if you go, Victor, maybe up a slide, the grievance hearings are still, are still there. It's still, it's still a right. NYCHA is still very much in that oversight role. We, as part of our, pre-eviction outreach, we do report to NYCHA regularly, on the status of households that look to be slipping into arrears, so that they're aware and that we can sort of navigate, the situation. So it's not, Yeah, as Jerry mentioned, at least for for the Metro North and White, we've been operating the building since September. We haven't started any legal actions against any residents. We are trying to work with residents and understand their circumstances and, try to find ways to avoid, legal actions or evictions whenever possible.
Yeah, because the reason I'm saying it, and then this is just the last piece, because I saw the grievance hearing section, but it says a third-party mediator, and so I was curious as to who decides on the third-party mediator? Is this something that, let's say myself as a tenant, and do I get a list of third-party mediators that will be part of this or through NYCHA? Or is this a third-party mediator that you have as a standard that deals with, let's say, Wavecrest and the tenants? And then, any issues regarding tenancy will go to that established third-party mediator.
Yeah, I would have to get back to you on that. I'm not,
Okay.
but I'm happy to give more information.
Thank you. Are there any more questions at the table? Marie?
I do.
Okay.
How are the vulnerable tenants, like disabled, the seniors? How are they being protected? Is there anything in place specifically for vulnerable tenants at all?
I guess, could you say a little more, like in what respect?
Well, in case of, because you have mentioned quite a few things in terms of eviction criteria. So I wanted to know, how does that apply if a tenant is a senior and disabled?
Gotcha. I would have to get back to you. I don't know of any specific policy.
How are they being protected? I mean, that's the question.
If I can interject, I'm sorry, I haven't had
you,
a
Liz.
chance, but I know our project has come up a little bit as we're talking about CNC. So, and we can provide these materials, but essentially, yes, there is a lot of judgment that we have to take, and that's why we have so many people on the team, because we all have to, put our heads together and make sure that everything's appropriate. But we have a lease that was created by NYCHA with the input of a lot of different stakeholder groups that has guidelines. We put together house rules in consultation with the tenants associations. And then NYCHA has a required process that we have to follow before we follow through with an eviction. So, which includes, did you try social services? Did you do this? Did you do that? We have a number of seniors and people with disabilities or people who just need some extra help. The first thing that we do is social services, and someone getting a notice because they're behind on rent, or us even starting an action, is not necessarily something that is resulting in eviction or that we want to result in eviction. So something, for example, that is coming up a lot with our seniors, the social service team is working with them, and they're coming back and saying, this tenant really needs more support. They need, they don't have family. They need someone looking out for them. And the only way, so we'll call adult protective services, we'll go through all of the steps. Sometimes we get to the point where the only thing that we can do is bring an action so that we can go before a judge and ask the judge to assign someone to them officially to help with their care. So there are a number of steps that we have, and we're very lucky that our, the social service teams that we're working with have, specialize in healthcare and more with mental health. But we can share, the documents that we do have that oversee this. But, the team is right that we all have to kind of use some judgment and, what things are small infractions versus really affecting the health and safety of other residents.
Okay, so the community board, can we receive regular written updates on progress and issues? Is that
Yes, of
possible?
course.
Sure, yes, that's possible.
Andy?
Hi, thanks for the presentation. So I have a question, do you have an option to have a clean slate with the residents, that are in arrears with their rents? Or that's an option or not an option on the table? Like, has there ever been any pacts that you, taken over, that's between CNC and Wave Press? That's my question to you both. When you're taking over a building, do you have the option, or does NYCHA give you the option to give the residents, so this is a new program and they're converting, are they giving them the option, giving you all the options to, have a clean slate and then start anew with every resident with a new lease, starting fresh, and then this is what they owe now, moving forward, if they don't pay that rent, then you can proceed with eviction process.
Yes, that is something that's an option. It's something that we're looking at. It's frankly, NYCHA's records are only as good as, what you might expect them to be. They're better or worse, So, in cases where we can't confirm, arrears for that NYCHA was potentially reporting, we wouldn't be pursuing those unless there was a really good documentation. And to Melissa's point, part of, sometimes starting a legal action is the intent isn't to evict everyone, but it's to open up sometimes some, options for one-shot deals or ways to be able to pay some of those arrears, to be able to help bring them current. But yes, that is something that we are reviewing currently, actually.
It's excellent.
Mhm. Any other questions here? Because if not, we have, thank you. We have a question from one of our, public, persons, Pilar de Jesus. Thank you for your patience.
Hola, I have a few and I'll try to make it fast. I heard a lot, so I would do my best. So I just wanted to point out like the whole nuisance evictions. With nuisance cases, as a paralegal that's been doing housing cases and going after landlords and management companies that claim to be doing all these wonderful things, nuisance cases, you really have to have real proof. And also, I just want to remind folks that a lot of these people that these folks will be taking to court will not have a lawyer. Yes, we have the law right to counsel, but in practice, as a legal service provider speaking, there's not enough of us able to have the capacity to support tenants when they're fighting landowners and their legal mumbo jumbo papers. I don't know what kind of paperwork you're going to submit when you sue these tenants for eviction, but it will be in their best interest to have a lawyer to make sure that whatever you're suing them from, whether it's nuisance or non-pay, that it be correct. Because what I know from my experience is that housing court is an eviction mill for a lot of you people, especially the folks who like to look like they're the good guys. So I'd like to know, what does it mean when you say the workers will be working with the people? A little bit more clarity on that. And then I'd love to hear about what's in place for the seniors. Again, lawyers, you're going to be, if you start bringing cases to housing court for these clients, most of them are not going to have lawyers. So they're not even going to know what their legal rights are. And I hear you. I'm not saying that you're one of these bad management companies that hires the bad landlord attorneys that typically come and they do all you waste more money in court than actually getting to the job. So I'm just curious, how is that happening? Because I don't see it. And then I heard a lot about capital, like, aesthetics, like, pretty improvements. I haven't heard about the plumbing or any of that, especially with the Second Avenue subway being a nuisance to all of our developments in the area of the Second Avenue subway. You said a lease was being created by the stakeholders. Who exactly is the stakeholders, if you can name them? I think you should know that by this point. It says when you said one more. when they
No,
said,
no,
what is
you
starting in
get them a
action?
chance to answer something, because you're asking a lot of questions, which is
Okay.
great based on your experience. Let them answer some, and then don't forget that last question, okay?
Okay.
All right, honey. Who would like a crack at Pilar's questions? Don't all start at once.
I'm trying to remember one.
Yeah.
I think for
The
one,
nuisance, let's start with nuisance. How are you gonna prove nuisance? And then who, when you say these workers are working with people, can you really just give us a real clear description when you say working? That's just very broad. We'll start there.
Thank you. Go ahead. Melissa?
sure, I can answer, and then Brian, if your team has anything to add, you can add. So when we say workers, we have multiple teams who work with the residents, and depending on the situation, it really merits like a different team member, right? Some things are management related, some things are better
Where we're talking about
addressed by
specifically about
social
evictions,
services.
though. I just want to be
Yes,
specific.
I
Evictions, you said
yes.
workers will be working with
That is what
people.
that's what
Okay.
I'm referring to. That if there is an issue that a household is working through that could result in an eviction, we have property management staff. We have on the property management staff, we have someone who does social service coordination, and then we have separate social service organizations that are dedicated for the residents. And so they work with the residents on that specific issue. So it depends on what they need. It could be they're falling behind on rent and they need help coming up with a plan, applying for assistance, or a lot of times it's just that they need to update their information so that their rent can be adjusted to something that's more affordable to them, and they help them work through that.
So it doesn't actually help them work through the evictions, honestly, because let's just say, what if you have folks who don't have the eligibility to have a one-shot deal, right? So like I again, but thank you for answering, but it's not, it's a very broad and it's a very basic response. And what I see in practice, that's not what happens. And so with nuisances cases, how do you guys plan to prove that? And also, you know that a lot of the tenants that you're bringing to court will not have lawyers to defend themselves against your lawyers.
And as far as nuisance goes, we have a process where our property management and our security team and the social service team gets involved when it's appropriate, and it's appropriate in a lot of cases. If there is activity that is against the house rules, it's something that is
No, I'm not
causing.
very aware about nuisance. I'm just, in many of my cases where landlords bring nuisance cases, they're just like really fugazi, just to put it like that. And they don't have any evidence. They're just bringing it and there's nothing. And I really hope, I'm not saying that's what you're going to do,
Yeah.
but I'm hoping that the law firm, and that's my other question, what law firm are you guys going to be working with to be supporting your eviction cases?
Just to get back to answer the original question. So when something that's affecting the quality of life or that is against the house rules happens, we can only document it if we have actual somebody else was involved that reported it, we have witnesses or video camera evidence, things like that. And so then we take statements, we take that information, and then we issue a violation, we call it, to the resident, letting them know it's a notice that just says, you've violated the house rules, this has happened, this is what's documented, and asking them to address the behavior. And then our team meets with them. We go through that process several times before we take any action. It's really, as you pointed out, it's really expensive and difficult.
And I think it's kind of hard
to
to,
go
you know,
through.
it's really interesting. I'm gonna
Mhm.
have my final question, and then I know you guys want to move on, but I just want to make sure that I note this. It's really interesting as you talk about nuisance, about
Mhm.
not following the house rules, NYCHA, and as far as I know, in my experience, landowners, especially like the big ones that own a lot of rent stabilized buildings, but NYCHA being one of the biggest landowner, to not follow rules. They don't follow the law. They've not maintained property. And here the tenants have been living. And it's interesting to me that we'll be real quick to throw out people, quote unquote, who are a nuisance, but we are not doing nothing about NYCHA. Maybe that's what your people are coming in to come in and do, but I don't know if I trust it. And my final question, just so for the record, when you said we we're starting an action, what we're going to start, we discuss on how we're going to start an action. Sorry if I'm misquoting you, but can you help us understand what is your process when you go and start an action? To me, I heard that as like starting an action in court, and you can clarify if I misheard that. But when you, I want to hear, what steps are you taking before you start an action in court? Because going to court is a very, very, not only costly for the developer, but also very costly for the person going through it, especially if it's you guys haven't prepared your documents. And I see this even with my own Mitchell Lama. They got these lawyers, even though the rent is paid, they're still suing you for money that was already paid. And NYCHA is very big for that. And I'm just curious because their books are fucking, excuse my language, really messed up. So I'm kind of curious how much time have you guys taken time? And then yes, how do you start an action? What does that process look like?
Okay, and this is the last question because we have to move on. Melissa?
So it's the process that I was just describing, where we document any issues and we notify the resident, and we have the appropriate team member. That could be management has like sits down with them in their office to discuss their behavior. It could be a family member or a visitor's behavior. And we go through that several times until it's determined that it's just not being addressed. And then once it's happened about 3 or 4 times, then we just refer it to legal, which means that we send it to our legal team. We send it to our attorneys who start going through that process. But it only happens if this is really a situation that is creating like a health or safety.
Well, we're talking about
issue.
non-pays and nuisance. We're talking about all evictions. I was being specific to your nuisance, but like how do you take action on all your evictions?
Hello,
But
we have
yes,
to move on.
I just wanted to clarify because that was it. I hear you.
Okay. All right, thank you so much, Pilar, for your question. This will give all our panelists food for thought with the questions that the community has. And thank you for the presentation. I'm assuming obviously that we will be getting a copy of the presentation, or we just didn't share. So I want to thank you for sharing, and be assured any questions that we have, we'll send a follow-up email. And just in terms of PACRAD, you know, we know that the community has been seeing a lot of different projects. And so, I want to thank you for coming to share. As always, evictions are a concern, and so we will continue to ask about that and how protections are being made available to our most vulnerable. So I want to thank you all. With that, we're going to move on, unless Chair, do you have another question? If not, we're going to move on to the next presentation.
Did they present on Jackie Robinson?
Yeah, there is, I think Melissa does have a presentation on some updates at Jackie
I
Robinson.
can just I'm just gonna go ahead to the update part. We don't.
Well, you don't have to speed up because Jackie Robinson has had a lot of questions, but if you could be as thorough as possible in your presentation, if you are making it more truncated, I would appreciate that.
Really quickly, Melissa, when she says that she'll just get to it, she's not going to tell you about RAD, right? Or about the teams, because you all know about that.
You know about RAD, you know about the properties. If you have any questions, I'll stop and back up on that. I just want to get to the update so that you have that information, and then we can go from there. So the hot topics and some of the things that we talked about last time, and I know that you all have reached out on our site security. So since we took over in December, We a lot of the same things that Brian had noted, right? Like fixing doors, making sure that the property's secure, installing security guards, temporary cameras, things to make sure that the property is secure. There was a lot of just getting people on the ground to let people know that these are not places that you can come and hang out. These are not places where you can come do illicit activities or, sleep in the stairwells, things like that. It took a few weeks, but we got through it. The social services I mentioned has been doing outreach to residents. They spent the first few weeks reaching out to residents that we had identified through our leasing process and through our construction preparation process that we identified as needing some additional support. And so they have been focusing on that. And now they're doing some wider outreach. The CNC team also added a team member for them to have on staff directly, a social service, a person to focus on social services that can help residents identify residents who may be having management related issues for the social service team. Sorry, I needed to minimize you. On the property management side, we staffed up, fully staffed up on porters, supers, handymen. On top of that, we hired an additional almost 20 temporary staff on top of what is typical, just to help get caught up and make sure that that we're keeping up with having the properties cleaned on a daily basis, trying to keep up with maintenance work orders. We inherited many, many work orders from NYCHA, thousands, and we successfully closed out all work orders related to leaks and mold that we inherited from NYCHA. And we've closed out most other work orders. Of course, other things have come up. The winter was really rough. As you all know, it really tried the systems in these old buildings. And we responded by, one, we patched all roofs to stop any leaking that was happening. That was really, in a lot of our buildings, was affecting the quality of life for a lot of residents who lived on the top floors. And then we sped up, while we're not behind on, someone asked about where we were in the construction schedule. We're on schedule, but we made the decision to speed some things up and move some extra funds around to be able to get some work on boilers and some major systems that were starting to fail sooner than was expected because of the harsh winter. And then I'm sure everybody's going to ask about the gas situation, Jackie Robinson. Unfortunately, in the middle of all of these difficult things happening, a gas leak was detected that was repaired, and then Con Ed came out to inspect. And out of an abundance of caution, Con Ed shut the gas off for all of Jackie Robinson houses. Nearly 200 homes. And really, our biggest concern was the interruption to residents, because we were being told by plumbers and anybody who had dealt with this in the past that the quickest they'd ever seen this get resolved was a year. It has now been 3 months, and we're down to the last 5 apartments that I'm hoping DOB will sign off on by next week. So we're very, very close to the finish line on finally getting the gas restored at Jackie Robinson houses. And then lastly, our teams have been moving forward on construction. As soon as it got warm enough, we started to work. We're replacing all roofs, doing some major facade work. A lot of the buildings had missing broken brick that were causing a lot of issues in the buildings. And so we are very quickly moving through that. And now our teams are working with each household to prepare them for the construction inside their apartments. That's my update. I'm sorry, I know it's a lot of information, so I'm happy to go over anything again.
Thank you, Melissa. Are there any questions? Christina?
Yeah, I just have, two questions. So you said you had to speed up to do some work. So I wanted to know, were any corners cut in order to do this speed up? Like, did you guys miss something or not do something because you needed to finish quicker? And my second question is about security. Are you guys going to have security once this is all completed for the residents, or is this security just a temporary thing that you're doing while you're doing the work?
On the first question, we had, this is specific to, this is the case in a few situations, but specific to, say, boilers, right? That were really, that we were planning in the summer, right? We ordered all of the equipment and we were planning in the summer to just replace everything when it was warm enough. Because of how difficult the winter was and that some of the equipment was not able to keep up, we said, we were able to move some of those things up ahead of schedule and get them done. In order to make sure everything was fully functioning. So it's not that we did anything differently. We moved it, we pulled some strings on some things. We, we special ordered things ahead of time, that kind of thing, so that we could get it done a little sooner. The second question, sorry, what was the second question?
About security.
Security.
Right.
Okay, so security.
I'm sorry, you stated that you had security now during the construction. Are you going to have security once the construction is done, or is this just a temporary thing?
In all of the senior buildings, there will be security permanently. At Jackie Robinson houses, the security plan does not include security guards. It includes a security plan that has not been instituted yet. So fencing, cameras, lighting, things that we don't currently have. And so for that reason, security guards are in place until then.
Can you explain how that security, like, okay, so I get it, you're putting up cameras, and so who's gonna be watching the cameras? Or is there anyone going to be watching the cameras? Is it a 24-hour thing? Or is it like what NYCHA does now? They're just there, and in case something happens, they'll go check the cameras. So how is that gonna work for those residents?
Our team watches the cameras, but they're everywhere. And it's not just cameras, right? There'll be new fencing, gates, different. There are going to be several things in place that'll keep you from actually entering the property. So that, and for that reason, it was determined that the security guards inside the buildings, because at Jackie Robinson houses specifically, the way that it's situated, you have to enter the property and go a ways before you actually get into the buildings.
Okay, but you do know that you have security now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to deter whatever issues are happening over there. But once you remove that, those issues will come back.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they will not be removed until we have the other measures in place.
All right. I just want to say something from a tenant, not Jackie Robinson. So I just want to preface that.
Okay.
A tenant today came to pay rent for another building that I'm aware of. Has nothing to do with you. I'm painting a scenario.
Mhm.
And one of the things that they said was that they had elderly in their building. And one of the things that that person pointed out that now as a mandated reporter, I have to bring up, was that in some instances, some of the elderly were being victimized by people from the community who could actually go in and, you know, like at the 1st of the month or the 15th of the month, whenever they got paid, or are actually using their apartment for illicit activities and stuff. So while I hear what you're saying, I don't think there's anybody that's gonna man the cameras 24 hours. There's not, depending on who comes in and out of the development site. The fact that there's gonna be a lot of safeguards in place that, you know, sound really wonderful, and I'm sure they will be helpful in a lot of instances. My concern when I heard that today was thinking about, people that, you know, you don't have that fresh eye as people walking in that may be vulnerable and someone's walking in with them, that might be able to pick up when someone might be in distress. So that's just something that I don't expect you to answer, but it's something that I want you to consider, because not every person will tell their housing management, their property management, when they're basically vulnerable or being treated in such a way that can really affect their quality of life and affect the way your property is run, right? Because you won't be able to potentially stop certain people from coming into your residence, your development, because there's really no one there unless you see something that tells you to watch a camera. I just needed to say that comment just based on what, you know, I found out today.
I do want to comment on that because, like I said, we have a lot of senior buildings, and even in the multifamily buildings, we have many seniors who've raised their families there. And this has come up where, and you know, the process that I described before, where you know, someone was referred to social services for some reason, or the team met with them because they noticed some activity. And they came back to us and said, I think this resident is being, you know, taken advantage of here. And, you know, we need to call adult protective services. We need to go through the proper channels. And so that's part of the reason. There's a lot of reasons, but that's part of the reason that when there is an issue, we meet with the household and we have the appropriate staff that's trained, whether it be social services or security or property management, to meet with the resident and try to assess what's going on. Especially because in a lot of cases they're allowing, if somebody is bringing them into the building, you know, we can't necessarily say no, but if we see that something inappropriate is happening, we can alert the, you know, the right folks.
Okay, thank you, Melissa. I just wanna, I'm gonna call Victor next, and then I'm gonna call Chair Briha, who has a question. But, you know, I also wanted just to get a sense of the availability of your staff, your property managers and your teams when someone might be in distress. The reason I say that is because there are certain parts during the year where, I mean, you're always busy, but you're preparing leases and you're registering apartments and you're doing a lot of different things. I'm just curious of what your work hours are and the availability should someone need to speak to someone of your team. You know, what's the wait time in order to, you know, to access staff from your property management?
If it's property management, and actually all teams, they're
teams, okay.
available, they have office hours from 8:30 to 5 every day. But anytime outside of that, anyone can call us, email us. I mean, the security team is working 24/7. Each development has an on-site, a super living in the building. So, you know, if it's maintenance related or if it's an issue, if there's an issue in the building, the super reports it right away. But if there's an emergency, if they call the management office, it goes directly and immediately is answered by an answering service that takes it, and logs it. And if it's an emergency, you know, they have a list of everyone that they need to call to wake up to deal with the situation immediately.
Thank you, Melissa. Victor, did you have something to add?
Yeah, just to add to some of Melissa's points, we try and match the appropriate services, the trained professionals for that. Some security measures are just going to require the police. And we are in close communication for both projects with PSA 5, with their officers. We go to their community meetings where, they update us on any crimes or any issues that they see around the projects on any of the NYCHA properties in the East Harlem region. And they are our best measures when some dangerous situations happen.
Thank you, Victor. Chair?
Speaking about, and I'm not saying, when White Houses originally came here, security guards were not a part of the plan. It was actually, at least in part, this committee that had asked about that, and then they were put in. We were originally told that the tenants were consulted with about a security plan, and then we found out in the walkthrough that that had not happened. When I attended a tenant meeting for Jackie Robinson around the end of last year, the most questions I heard were regarding security. And one of the stories that came up, and whether it's true or accurate or not, was that there was some suspicion by a tenant that another tenant was allowing people to come in and do drugs in the hallway. My concern there is, and I understand you could evict that person for a nuisance, but as we know, that won't happen necessarily right away. And if there is no on-site security to deter that, that'll happen, and then the police will have to respond to that afterwards. I know we've gone back and forth about this, me and all of you, on emails, and I think after quite a while, we got to the answer that this isn't in the budget. And so I think there's been questions about what exactly this business models look like in these Rat Pack developments. What are the developer fees? What management fees are you collecting? What salaries are employees getting paid at these properties? And what is the budget and how is that being allocated? Because when we hear about it being now regarding not having enough funding, I'm not saying that that's not true. I'm just saying, can we see the data to back that up and support it?
Yeah, I mean, like we've mentioned in the past, there are a number of things that the budget has to go towards, right? And the normal things like maintenance and insurance, and utilities, those types of things, in addition to social services, all of the staff, which is 32 BJ. So those wages, for example, are set by 32 BJ. And then there's security, and we go through a very rigorous process because the city largely funds the project. Like, they gave hundreds of millions of dollars to fund the construction that's needed, the work that's needed. And so the city's budget office has the ultimate say on these things. And so there's a lot of government agencies who review and scrutinize the budget and have input on it.
Who determines the salaries of the management, though? And what is the management fee for Jackie Robinson? What percent is it?
That's also set by NYCHA. So they have like a percentage.
But do you know what it actually is, out of curiosity?
I don't off the top of my head, because NYCHA set a NYCHA and OMB, the city's budget office, they basically calculated what would the management fee be if it was in a low income, like, tax credit building. where the only income to the building were 30% of residents' income. And so they calculate what it would be, and then it's so they basically set it that way.
My last question, and Melissa, I don't know if you'll be able to answer this, but if security had not originally been planned for White Houses, and then it was determined that the senior housing was going to get it, or just let's use that example, how was funding, maybe Chris, you know this, did something that was being funded need the money to be moved from there to do security? If it wasn't originally a part of the plan, I guess it wasn't budgeted for. So how was the money found there, and why can't it be found here? I'm sure, I know there are differences, but I guess I'm just trying to understand, in other instances where this wasn't planned for, and now it is being implemented.
Well, how
I
many-
can jump in just, I can just jump.
Brian, how many security guards do you have?
Well, at White House for one security guard.
It's also
right.
One entrance.
So in our
Right.
case, so in the case at Metro North and White, we negotiated a better insurance contract than what we had budgeted for. So we were able to identify some savings that then we allocated those savings towards security.
And that was for one security guard. At Jackie Robinson Houses, we have, well, I should say that group of buildings, we just refer to them as Jackie Robinson, but as the group of buildings, it's 10 buildings. And we have 24-hour security at many of them. That comes out to a dozen security guards. So the security budget is quite high, actually, for the buildings, as well as the social service budget. There's a lot more staff goes into management of this many buildings. So there's a lot of things that are scrutinized.
Melissa, I'm gonna ask one question. If there are any other questions that we have, we'll collate them and we'll send to you, just because the meeting is going, we have other presentations that we have to give respectful attention to. Is one of the things I'm gonna ask you to explain is you mentioned Jackie Robinson has like 10 buildings, and there's like 24-hour security in that. I'm just curious, and you don't have to answer it now, but I'd like to know what determines the rotation, right? Because you said at most buildings, you have like 24 hours. And so I just want to get a sense in the response that we'll disseminate, what determines, other than maybe potential illicit behavior there or anything like that, what is the thought process in terms of determining, let's say, who gets 24-hour, how do you rotate, like, and what does the rotation mean in terms of, do you rotate, someone stays 2 days and then they rotate out and then someone else rotates, or they don't have security at all, the way it's expected, or for half a day, those kind of things. I think that would be helpful, for us to understand, and anything else you wish to share after all the panelists. So we'll send everyone who's on this call a question. Pilar, I'm going to select you. Is there anybody at the table who wants a question? If not, Pilar, I'm gonna put you down for one question, because we have other presentations, and this has gone from a 15-minute presentation. And I thank you all for your patience, but we have to move on. So Pilar,
Okay.
one question.
I'll make it very fast. I think it'd just be important. You said that you have you've figured out, you've remediated the mold issues. I think it'd be important to provide an actual report that actually shows that the mold is done, because a lot of cases they just paint over mold and it sounds like the facade is still an issue. And from my experience, that's usually what keeps the mold keep coming back. So I think you should send the board a report that actually shows that the mold has been handled. And then my question is there a rent abatement for the tenants? Because it sounds like they've been dealing with mold, facade issues, and gas issues.
On the first thing, anything related to mold and leaks, NYCHA is under a court-ordered monitor for that. So there is a specific process. We have to report back everything, testing results, pictures. So all of that is being monitored by the court and the plaintiff's attorneys. So there's a very specific process for that. And there's a I think it's called the mold and ombudsman. There's an ombudsman's office that's been established, where any residents can call if they have complaints or issues related to leaks or molds for these properties.
Okay, and the question really was just, are they getting a rent abatement?
No.
Okay, so they're not getting a rent abatement for the lack of services being maintained. That was my question, but it sounds like no. Thank you.
Thank you, Pilar, for your question. Okay, and so we're, like I said, we're gonna collate a couple of questions that we'll send, especially with Jackie Robinson, you know, mentioning that it's 10 buildings, but it sounds to me like you also have scatter sites there. And if the other ones are 8 scatter sites, and let's say the 2 buildings, let's say together, I'm curious as to how security is rotated and what does that mean for the health and safety of the residents, both in the scatter sites as well as in the main building. So with that said, I want to thank you all for coming in and clarifying and your presentation. I look forward to reading it more thoroughly, and like I said, we'll send questions, and please feel free, you can all jump in on the same question, or you can all take different questions based on who the question affects. So I want to thank you all very much. I see Matthias was very quiet over there, Matthias. So we'll get you next time. Hi, honey. All right. Have all a good night, and we're gonna move on to our next presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you all very
Thank you.
much.
Have a good evening, everyone.
All right.
Good night.
Is Mr. Edward Poteet still here? Hello, Mr. Poteet. Thank you for your patience, and I hope that you learned a lot of things from what you heard and the kind of questions we asked. So Mr. Poteet is here to do a presentation on the survey of stakeholders' concerns regarding gentrification. And Mr. Poteet is from Columbia University. Very impressive. I hand the floor to you, Mr. Poteet.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And a very long time ago, I used to be on the housing committee, was housing chair in Board 10. So thank you for the work that you do, because you don't get paid for this time, but you spend a lot of time doing this anyway. My name is Ed Poteet. I've been an affordable housing developer for about 20 years, as well as a professor at Columbia for about 10 years. I see a few friends in the room that I helped Candy Vasquez a long time ago build a building that she's in called Cologne Plaza. So Candy, thanks for being there. But I'm here tonight as an academic to talk about the concept of gentrification. I'm someone that grew up in East Harlem also a long time ago on 110th and 5th Avenue, and have seen the pros and cons of gentrification in the East Harlem community. But as an academic, if you really want to get to the core of something, you have to study it, right? You know, we, I think, all want East Harlem to be a better community, but at the same time, we want zero displacement, zero of community members. And that's the double-edged sword of gentrification. So what I'm doing is having surveys, surveying people in the community just to get their sense and sentiment around how they feel about gentrification. So I'll be brief because I know you spent a lot of time on the last presentation. I have a survey which you can access online as well, that we're trying to do a social media piece around this as well. So I would invite any members of the Housing Committee or any members of Board 10. One, I'll put where to find the survey in the chat. And two, if any of you would be open to having a 10-minute interview, whether it's in Zoom or in person, that I've dragged Candy as it is, that she said yes, but I'm trying to get a lot more people to help out as well. I would love to set up times next month or the summer to interview you and get your sense as to how you feel about gentrification. So with that being said, let me put in the chat where you can find the survey online. You're welcome to fill it out. And if you're open to having a one-on-one, I'll put my email here as well. Just send me an email and be happy to set up a time to interview. And happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Potteet. We don't want you to feel shortchanged.
No, it's okay.
So if you have something else you want to add, my question is, how are you getting, besides social media, how are you getting the word to the community? And are you targeting just, let's say, are you targeting specific communities or are you targeting across the city? Because depending on who you talk to, they may feel that they're being gentrified. And then, you know, I don't think, while I would love zero displacement, and that will always be a goal, the reality is that doesn't happen. Nothing exists in a vacuum where there's zero of anything, although that could be a goal. So I'm just curious as to how you doing outreach to get the kind of information that you're looking for. Are you targeting other not-for-profits? Are you targeting the church communities? Are you charging, you know, the political establishment, the offices that we have here, governmental, you know, and on and on and on. You can fill in the rest, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. We have given a similar presentation in Board 11. And so this is our first.
You're doing it here at Board 11.
I'm sorry.
Gotta switch it. You're at Board 11, you did it at 10.
No,
Okay.
we did it at 9. I'm sorry, 9.
Oh, you did it at 9, all right.
Thank you.
Okay.
So
That's okay.
this is the outreach that we're doing, is that we're reaching out to community boards, looking to talk to leaders, and just, we've talked to a few district leaders as it is. And so we're just trying to get as many leaders and stakeholders and just see how they feel about this topic so that we can actually have a study about people's sentiment about it. Do they feel that it's a good thing, a bad thing, something in the middle?
And so if you have a flyer with, I don't know, those QR codes, I'm kind of not techie, but if you do, and I don't know if you may have sent it to our district manager, our wonderful Angel Muscane. We put together a newsletter that maybe it can be included in there. So as we send it to all our partners and anyone who wants to know what's happening here, that information could potentially be included to give you a wider reach.
I would love it. So what I'll do is I'll drop that off next week early, let's say Monday, and I'll drop it off to the community board office. Happy to do it.
Okay. All right. Are there any questions from Mr. Potteet? I know Candy's a friendly face. Candy, do you have a question?
No, I already discussed it with him, so I don't have any.
All right. So thank you so much, Mr. Potteet.
Wait. I have a few questions.
Sure.
One moment, Pilar. Let me finish.
Sorry.
That's all right, Missy. So, Mr. Potteet, I want to thank you for coming and sharing. Where, as you see, we do have one question from a community resident, Pilar. But I just want to thank you for, one, being patient, and 2, being so pleasant. And with that, Pilar, remember, he's pleasant. So ask your question nicely. Thank you.
I always act nicely. I think my voice, because I'm Latina, comes off a little aggressive. But I just wanted to know, what is the definition of gentrification in the way that you guys are defining it when you're talking to people in this survey? And what is the timeline? And I hear you mention that you're going to share it with the community board, but you've also reached out to leaders, district leaders, curious which ones. because in my experience, they're not really good at disseminating information. And I think here's a suggestion. I think you need to get street people out. It's a good season to have people outside in the street. You need to get people in NYCHA and ask people in NYCHA, not just, the regulars that whoever these leaders or whoever's going to direct you, you need to talk to NYCHA, because unfortunately, a lot of NYCHA members do not come to the community board, and the community board may not have that listserv. And I'm always a big person for door knocking and grassroots type of organizing if you want to get a real survey going. But just one, what is what is the definition? I mean, I guess, yeah, how are you guys defining gentrification, and what's the timeline?
Yeah, so that's why we're doing a survey, right? Because it's different people define it differently. And so we're doing a survey to kind of just see what the common sentiment is. And we found some interesting things, but we want to actually get more data points in and then begin talking about what we found. The time limit is that I want to present this at my class in the fall, which is around October. So I'll be spending all summer and the spring doing surveys throughout community board 9 and 11 and 10.
Okay, awesome.
Also,
And if
too,
you need support, I would love to support you. I don't mind sharing my email,
please.
pdelicious@ehp.nyc. And yeah, even if you need support with the presentation, because I think that sometimes we, including myself, has I mean, again, it's however people define it, but I have sometimes tied it to race. And I think that there's something bigger than just race. It's more about mindset. And I would love to support that. Thank you,
Yeah.
board, for giving me the space.
And Pilar, that's it, right? Some people define it by class, some people define it by race, some people define it by mindset. And that's literally what we're trying to get to in the survey. And just to understand how people are understanding the concept of gentrification. Could you put your email in the chat, or do you just want to tell me?
Yeah, I can't. This chat is disabled, but my email is P as in Paul, Pilar, and my last name DEJES as in Sam, US as in Sam, at Edward H Harry P Peter.nyc.
Awesome. Thank you, Pilar. Appreciate you. I'll be reaching out.
Thank you, Pilar, for your assisting Mr. Poteet and helping him potentially reach other people. I have a young lady here who has a question. She's gonna introduce herself because unfortunately I don't have the sheet in front of me.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Hi, good evening, Edward. My name is Audrey Joe, and I just wanted to get your email address since I'm in the room and don't have access to the chat. So.
Oh, sure. The email address is ECPOTEAT.
I'm sorry, can you?
Sure. E is in Edward, C is in Charlie, P is in Pop, O is in Oscar, TEAT, my last name, at gmail.com.
And I can email you and ask for the survey link. Thank you.
That'd be great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Ms. Poteet. If there are no other questions, or you don't have a brilliant brainstorm that you want to leave us with, again, I thank you for waiting so long, but taking the time to educate us. And we all will participate in your survey because we all have probably different ideas of what gentrification means.
Right, great. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night, y'all.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you for the third presentation. So the third presentation is a request for support for state legislative actions. And because you said Audrey, are you Sabrina? Process of elimination. So Sabrina Lamb is here from the Harlem Coalition for Age in Place and Affordable Dignity, which we shall all hope for, right? And so with that said, I'm giving Miss Sabrina Lamb the floor, and you can feel free if you want to come over here. And Miss Audrey, you can both feel free to, if you want to come right here, there's 2 chairs, feel free. Oh, you're gonna stand. Oof, okay,
Fine.
thank
Always
you.
deserve the respect.
Okay.
So good evening, Chair Bria and Chair Orama and members of the Housing Committee Board. I am Sabrina Lamb, a Harlem resident for over 20 years, joined by
Audrey Henry Jones, and I'm a Harlem resident for over 3 decades.
We're here representing the Harlem Coalition for Aging, Place, and Affordable Dignity. We know that in East Harlem, housing security is one of the #1 issues we all face. Whether we live in NYCHA, rent stabilized apartments, or limited equity co-ops, we are all part of the same fabric. But today, we're here to talk about a property tax cliff that is threatening to tear a hole in that fabric by displacing thousands of our long-term neighbors across Harlem and the Harlems of New York City. I think about my 80-year-old neighbor who right now is shaking because she has nowhere to go. And when the tax abatement expires on June 30th, so, sorry, and I read your part. Go ahead, read mine.
No.
This isn't about a luxury real estate at all. We're talking about teachers, nurses, city workers, and seniors living in buildings like Madison Plaza, around the corner, Madison Court, and Madison Park. These are limited equity homes intended to stay affordable forever, yet shareholders are facing tax jumps from $164 per year to nearly $12,000. When these buildings fail, we don't just lose homeowners, partial homeowners, we lose the stability of our blocks, disruption of culture, and our community. And because the administrative deadline to potentially fix rather, has passed, that was in March, these families, our families now are 100% dependent upon legislation from the New York City Council and the New York State Legislature to act before they adjourn on June 10th.
So we're asking Community Board 11 to support our 4-track plan that protects the affordability of housing in our neighborhood. So repairing our buildings, that's as point 8170A. This extends the J51 program so buildings can afford essential repairs and green upgrades without passing those massive costs down to residents. The Wright Amendment, this makes tax exemptions permanent for HDFCs. Assemblymember Jordan Wright has stepped up to co-sponsor this bill and is adding an amendment to include HDC regulated buildings, ensuring that no affordable co-op in Harlem is left behind.
And to dovetail on what Audrey just said in terms of repairing our buildings. So when a building is saddled with shoddy construction, the people that lived there by law have to pay for it. Our building had to pay millions of dollars because of the developers' shoddy construction. So we're fighting to have a clawback amendment in the New York State Legislature. And so we're fighting also for a tax cap and a freeze for seniors and neighbors with disabilities, the vulnerable. This ensures that people who have lived here for over 40 years aren't priced out by a tax bill they didn't create. And as I said, to hold developers accountable who are continued being rewarded to spread their seeds, destructive seeds across the city in our neighborhoods.
Audrey?
So whether we rent or own, the threat is the same. The loss of our neighbors, the loss of the character of East Harlem, the loss of the flavor of East Harlem. We urge Community Board 11 to sign and transmit this letter of support and by June 12th. By standing with us, you are standing for the principle that Harlem is not for sale and that every resident, regardless of their housing type, deserves to age in place with affordable dignity. So that's what we're asking. We want to remain in Harlem and we want our neighbors to remain in Harlem too.
So just 2 questions.
Yes.
Well, can do more questions, but we'll do 2, right? So could you give us a little history of the Harm Coalition for Age in Place and Affordable Dignity?
Neighbors who came together and said, what is the tsunami that's about to hit us personally, as well as thousands of Harlemites across the district, across. I attended a housing town hall meeting Saturday before last and was listening to a woman speak with Senator Clear, and I felt like I was listening to myself. All along Bradhurst Avenue, there's going to be a tsunami of exactly how we're saying to be unleashed on these people. And you know, if the way that it's set up to be, there's going to be an exodus. You hear about this stat about, you know, Black people having to leave New York. That's going to accelerate it.
Okay, and you guys, and the Harm Coalition started when? I mean, have you been around for a long time? Because these problems have been around a long time, or did the immediacy of these concerns join you together to try to address?
We had to do something. We had to, you know, come together.
So let me give you an example. In 2030, I will have to pay $800 more a month just to cover my personal tax liability. So that's $9,600 a year extra out of my pocket when I have a child who will be in college and a 98-year-old mother, God willing, will still be with me. So that is the challenge that we're facing, right? So that doesn't include any additional increases in our building operations. That's just to cover taxes.
Okay, and then my last question, because I want to open it up. If I understood correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, you said that the letter was needed by June, but your email originally said by May 14th.
We were just trying to, you know.
No, give us time. No, but I just want to know, like, the latest would be at the last day of the session? But really, ideally, as soon as we can.
We have to respect what your timelines are in terms of meeting and then going before your general board.
Right.
We understand that process. And also keeping in mind, June 10th is when the New York State Legislature ends.
Okay, right, just because whatever we do tonight, we'll have to go before our full board or our executive for ratification, so I just wanted to be clear on the timeline. Okay, Candy?
I have, because I know that I'm familiar with these buildings over 20 years ago. I know that you guys came, as soon as the building opened up, it had so many shoddy different problems. Rain inside of people's apartment, flooding and all, and it was all left on the residents. Like it was let the buyer beware kind of thing, no one knew about it. And I didn't think back then it was fair at that time, I was chair housing, but that that was not fair to the residents then, to see that we're still now moving forward with, you guys are still in the same situation. That whole J51, we already saw that coming. And that was also discussed back then, what was HPD's plan to help you, have some type of solution towards what's gonna happen down the road, but it seems like nothing's changed. Everything's been the same.
And that's why we have to speak out, and that's why we're here. I handed letters personally to Mayor Mondami because, silence is not an option. And as you said, it's been happening for years, and it's not just us. It's not us. It's across the city. And so the landscape, the culture, the representation, all of that, families being disrupted is right here knocking at our door.
Yes, we need to support them on their course.
Chair?
I support a lot of this. My question though is, so it says 72.5% of the shareholders earn at or below $196,000. So am I correct understanding that 27.5% of the shareholders are earning more than that per household?
So that is a combined income. We're not just speaking of HDC, we're talking about the HDFC coalition that was advocating, putting all that and averaging what those incomes are, not one particular building chair.
My concern is that it's too broad. I'm all for helping the people that need to age in place, the low income residents, the ones with disabilities. But this, as I understand it, if we support this as written, then we are supporting higher income households as well, from having tax relief. And I think in a community like this, that's not a position that I would be willing to take. If there was a way to make sure that this is tailored specifically to those demographics that need it, I would be for that. And this, I think, would just not be us supporting it for these three properties that are in our community being used as an example. So we'd be essentially supporting this citywide. So while I'm for a lot of what this says, I'm not for the entirety of this letter, because I don't think this board should be taking positions on giving households that are making six-figure plus incomes more relief. That a lot of these high income households have been there for a while. There have been sales from a while ago. They've been benefiting as high income households already through this. And so I think my problem is that we have to definitely edit this letter, in my opinion. And then the question is, how do we vote on that tonight, unless we make those edits tonight?
We have to vote on it tonight?
Well, they need this letter by June 10th or something like that. So meaning, if we don't vote on it at full board in May, they won't get the letter in time from us.
Chair, may I just respond to it? That's why I sent that letter, and I think it says customizable to make it to what.
Oh, no, yeah.
It's different. And I would also say, so Madison, our building does not reflect those
I was
incomes.
gonna say, I know that. there's people
No,
that have
and
that
I'm not
income.
saying that. I'm just saying,
I think
as
that what you're
written.
doing is bumping everybody, you should give accurate, if you
So I'm
really
saying.
want the support, you need to give the accurate numbers of what every household, because
For
I
these
know that
right here,
some of these people that have had a high income when they poured in, don't have that income anymore, they're retired, and they're not even getting, if they're making even 50,000.
It's saying that, it's not saying they used to earn, it's saying they
about.
earn, right?
But it's lumping the buildings together, so.
Well, that's what I would,
No,
I would
no,
separate,
we're not
well, for your
having
own
a
sake, I
citywide.
would separate you
I
guys
got
from
you.
that,
You're right.
don't get
I got
everybody
you.
else that help, you know what I'm saying?
And I think also, just to touch a little bit on what our chair is saying. Whenever I see numbers like this, if you can just explain a little bit about the history of the number. So for instance, this is what I mean. So let's say I live there and I make $110,000.
Yes.
You think that's a lot, but now I have 3 children that I'm raising, so it's me and my husband who's on disability.
Yeah.
And so it's, maybe we have 130,000, but we're paying school and we're paying groceries, where a grocery bag is now like $70 for a bag, like. So if there was like, even just potentially when that is mentioned, like what's the average family size?
Right.
Because it's not only gonna affect, it's not gonna affect the homeowner. It's gonna affect the homeowner and his family.
That's right.
So when you think of a home, you have 10 apartments, you think of 10 people, but it's not 10 people, it's like 100. So I think that will also be helpful, and the fact that the average, but you also have people that are non-average, right?
Right.
That bought it by, for $130 or 35 years ago, whatever, and now, don't have that,
Right.
Yeah.
or in danger of displacement, even if they do have it.
And that affects 47% of our building.
There you go.
Yeah, I actually say more, because the 8th and 9th floor of our building, they are higher earners, right? But 1 through 7, including me, are not high earners. So most of our building is impacted by this. There are some people who this may not affect, but it's gonna affect me, and it's gonna affect my neighbor on the 3rd floor, and everyone else from 1 through 7.
It's 47%.
Okay.
I like the idea in terms of just redrafting this, the letter that you have, and shape it towards our buildings. We're just trying to, I guess the thought was in terms of, including all the HDFCs and all that sort of thing. It's just to indicate just how, widespread this is. But I do take your point in terms of focusing what's happening right there.
And so, and nothing says that it can't be general the way, or it can't be the way you are, but if you would have like 2 specific buildings, for example, which would be yours, because I think that allows people to actually see, where if someone sees like a 6-figure income, they go, well, I make only 5-figure income, what do I care? Right, but if you actually show the everyday impact, that whether you have 6 figures or not, because now 6 figures is nothing, depending on your family size or your debt or whatever, it's just nice to say like 6 figures, but, it does.
I just wanna clarify that, I'm just saying supporting is just the ones in East Harlem.
Sure,
Because I know the horror story you guys have been enduring since day one that you guys bought in and sold and every developers, everybody just like.
wash their hands.
Right.
Yeah,
And to
and
your
the onus
point,
is on you.
those who sold never sold for profit. Was no.
They left because they couldn't deal with it.
Couldn't deal with it.
And exonerated all the legal fees.
But it was never, oh, we're selling my apartment, so I'm gonna get a windfall. Those apartments were not situated to be able to do that. If we were to sell, it would be for pennies. It really would be.
One last thing, what I would look into too is really focusing on the asks that help the people, the seniors, or the people under certain income or earnings. And then you could even push for more relief there, and then identify the ones that would kind of lump in people who don't need it as much. So you're really separating out those 2 things. So my point being, like, even if you wanted this to be bigger scale citywide, which could get more attention and traction, if you make those specific and citywide to anyone under a certain income or whatever, then I don't think we'd have a problem with it. It doesn't just have to be about helping people in this community. Always, it could be something that helps everybody, but then the people that really need it. So that's just something else, because there are ways to tailor this that would specifically make asks that would help like the people that need it, and I think that would get a lot more traction.
Okay, sounds good. When is the executive meeting this month? After? Mr. Miskane? Sorry, I haven't had enough coffee today.
No, it's okay, I haven't raised my hand.
Uh-huh.
It's okay, all points taken at the beginning of the letter, but their ask is to support these 4 pieces of legislation. Those 4 pieces of legislation may not have all the text at the front that might be concerning the folks at the table. So my suggestion would be for us to do a deeper dive into those 4 in advance of full board, because you may be okay with supporting it. Where maybe the language at the beginning of the numbers cited might be kind of throwing folks off at the table.
Right.
And those aren't real, thank you for that point. Those aren't real numbers. We just created a number for except for the one that Assemblymember Wright is supporting.
Right.
But we would love, and we said that to our legislators, introducing legislation for clawback so that residents are not paying for the defects of developers. There should be a clawback, because right now there is no clawback.
Right.
That we can get relief.
So, okay, right, so with that said, I just want to get a sense from this committee. How do they feel about supporting this, although this needs work, right, in terms of
What they're
that?
asking is the 4 on the back.
They just, right, so they're asking about for the, right,
You could write your own stuff on the front.
These.
exactly.
Just, what, I'm sorry.
What, no,
Speaking out of turn.
no, you're not speaking out of turn.
So
Speak.
what I was saying is like focusing on whether the committee wants to support their request to support these 4 things. There's 2 pieces of
Right.
legislation and the 2 other asks.
Right. So everyone has a copy of this. If you want to support this with the understanding that if there's anything, when we can support, but if there's anything we want to be more specific about, we will tailor this. And of course, you can feel free to send an updated one. So the 4 legislation is right here. We ask that of support for the 4 urgently needed legislative.
That's this one.
That's the one that's in
That
front
has
of you,
the
there are
aging in
four,
place.
right, so,
City and state.
right.
In the corners, the clawback.
Right, so the first one is S.8170A/8.10549, J531 extension, Kavanaugh Bronstein, extend J51R through 2036, raise the cost recovery cap from 70 to 100% in line with local law 97 deadlines. This expires June 30, 2026. Without it, 1,358 plus co-ops and condos, including HDFCs and HDC regulated buildings, lose the only financing mechanism available for required energy retrofits. The second one is S.80A/8.2707. There's two bills, one's the state, one, they're two different bills. Same, they cover basically the same information. HDFC and HDC Self-Determination Act, Jackson Taylor as amended, make the HDFC tax exemption permanent before its 2029 expiration. Crucially, the bill must be amended to include HDC regulated cooperatives, buildings like Madison Plaza that are publicly financed but are not structured as HDFCs. Assemblyman Jordan Wright and Senator Clear are committed co-sponsors of this amendment. Without it, HDC co-op owners are left behind. The third one, age in place in affordable dignity, the tax cliff transition relief. For the gap, neither bill addresses above addresses. A transition period tax cap pegged to an affordability baseline. B, income scale relief for moderate and middle income shareholders. C, a freeze for qualifying senior city workers, people with disabilities and longtime residents. D, HPD-led interagency coordination deploying Article 11 exemptions, regulatory agreement renewals, and 485X bridges. Construction defect clawback legislation, the ACCA SR Act. Shareholders in HPD, Cornerstone, HCC regulated, and other publicly financed co-ops were forced to absorb the cost of original developer construction defects through maintenance increases and building refinancing with no legal recourse. We call for a 15-year statute of limitations for defect claims, LLC piercing for developers who receive public subsidy, and HPD administered shareholder restitution fund and restoration of income ceilings elevated solely by defect refinancing. They are requesting to vote to adopt a letter of support and to transmit it to Governor Hochul on these four legislative pieces. So I read it out loud so it can go into the record with the addition or any that's sent, but the specific ask is to these four legislations, regardless of what it says, regardless of any income. These are the legislations that are on the table that they're requesting support for. Not everybody talk at once. Chair, you have something to say?
Yeah, they're all okay, depending on how they're framed, right?
Right.
From my understanding, 8170A and 880A, let's stay in the Senate and then whatever the Assembly corresponding bill is. Right now as written, or I don't know how these bills are actually fully written, I think these could help and get these exemptions and breaks for anybody earning any income.
Okay.
I don't see why we can't suggest that we support these bills, so long as they are focused on low-income households or senior households.
Or primarily for.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
The reason I say that is because we do want everything for low income. But we don't know when there's a catastrophic event that can happen, where all of a sudden, something happens. So I think it's important that we include that language and really stress that if we're gonna support it, that is what we're looking to do, that we needed to support low income and other people who might be, but I think that this community is no longer built just on that type of income. So I will go with whatever the committee says, but I think that we run the risk sometimes that if we don't address it from a community perspective, that we definitely have to advocate the way we have to advocate. The question is, do we want to offer suggestions, like you said, to primarily focus on low income or people who have run the risk of losing? And if that's the case, then definitely it should be written up.
I'll say this and I'll leave it at that. Obviously, I'm one vote. You guys do whatever you want. I don't even like the word primarily. I like the word only.
Okay, so
There's
only-
way too much help that's needed for households in this community and homeless people and stuff that I would not want this to personally support something that's gonna help, potentially help higher income. We haven't taken enough positions, in my opinion, recently to help people in a lot more need. We're here to represent the whole community, but the focus should be on those who need it most. And so that's just my concern, but.
But
Right,
that's
and
really
also-
relative, like who needs it most, I think that's relative.
Well, the average household makes $30-something thousand a year in this
But
house,
the-
in this
In the
community.
building, you have a household that makes 50,000, and you have so you have a whole slew of different incomes in one building,
And
that's
that's-
the issue.
Right, but we
And
could
that's
say
the
that we
issue.
want the support only specifically
For
for those,
households.
for those households. What I'm saying is there is a way to differentiate, so I agree with you. I'm just saying that, I could tell you for a fact, in this community, a household earning over $200,000 a year no one is gonna look at that as a struggle in this community.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the issue.
And
And I don't know if the board wants
No,
that
I
out
agree.
there.
But can I just say, because I want to make sure this is underscored, is that the buildings that we're talking about, there's a few people, on the 9th floor that do. I'm saying what's happening in our building. We're not affluent people. We're not. And then when I was speaking with residents at 1787, I think that's Madison Court, years ago, they were teachers or what have you, or they're seniors now. They don't have that same kind of income, and it wasn't high even then. So the initial, the stats or whatever, as we all know, that is not widespread. It's not widespread in Harlem. It's definitely not widespread in East Harlem. It's to protect those that are already in their homes. I was saying to, I forgot who it was, but I said, I understand building affordable housing, very important, and keep the roof over people's heads. And we're not trying to keep our roof over our head for profit. We can't sell it at for profit. It's just how it was constructed. It's to keep our roof over our head.
And if we can't, and let's say I have to sell, who's gonna afford to buy it? Someone that doesn't look like me, right? Or someone else. So if we don't try to keep it, and you have to sell, the people who are gonna afford it are not the people necessarily who have an investment in Harlem. That's really the bottom
Can
line.
I just add something?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was looking on Zoom. So I'm gonna take my building, for example, my 342 East 119th Street, we're a co-op, right? We only have 5 original tenants there. Everybody else sold their apartment because of the taxes that's going up and raising up. Right, we have seniors that at one point in time, they made, let's say, 85,000, and now they're making 25,000. And every single day, I get a call saying that they are afraid they're gonna foreclose on their property because they can't afford the maintenance. I know you may have some reservation on the bill, so do I. There's some tweaks that we can do, but the problem that I see is that when the state institute a program and the city has a program, they don't kind of like mush together, and we need to make sure that when a tax abatement is expiring, immediately they can go into a city program, and that's what's not happening right now. We're left to making sure that this tax abatement expires before we can even get in a screen or a drain. And that can take 5 or 10 years because builders are proactively looking to the future, right? My tax abatement is not up for another 5 years, but I already have a 7% tax increase every single year. I'm fortunate that my building said, you know what, this year we are kind of like at stable, we're not gonna increase it. But my maintenance went from $900 to $1,500 right now. And if I do another 7%, that's put up, I'll make $4,000, even though I can afford it right now. But if I want to stay here for another 25 to 30 years, I'm not gonna be able to afford it because of the taxes.
Tax would be more
More
than
than what I'm making.
the maintenance.
Yeah.
Would you like to clarify?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all saying the same thing, though. I just said, so if you were earning $200,000 10 years ago and now you're earning 30, then yeah, okay. I'm talking about the people that are earning a lot of money now. I personally don't want them to be put in the umbrella of this and with the benefits. And I don't hear you guys saying anything differently. I feel like we're having a back and forth, but we're actually saying the same thing.
Yeah, you're saying the same.
Yeah.
You were saying the same.
No, I was just saying that we need to make sure that we pressure the state to be able to be flexible so we can.
I agree with you. I agree.
Two legislative efforts, and then I'll conclude, is that, the mayor said that the governor is issued a resolution or proposal
Yeah,
on
that's
this
the next
issue.
one.
And then, city council member Shauna Brew has kind of linked with that other, that HDFC legislation for local addressing, the increase in property taxes. So there's some legislative effort happening, it just needs to be accelerated. And we need all legislators to support this.
Okay, so it sounds like we've had a robust discussion.
But it'll have to come from the people.
Right,
Seriously.
so we've had a robust discussion. As you see, there's some talk about being more specific in terms of the aid and the incomes that should be, so that's something that we would then potentially tweak in our recommendation, should that happen, with the understanding that you will understand that that's gonna happen.
With the
Right,
board, sure.
with what, right,
Yeah.
and I would be interested in the information that you would send, especially since you mentioned like floors 1 through 7. But that has nothing to do with what we're gonna talk about
Correct,
right now,
correct,
right?
correct.
So with that said, we've discussed, is there a motion for support of this with any differences in language that will be put together, not right now at this table, but will be, it will be tweaked. And if so, or if you know what you wanna tweak now, then if there's for it or not.
Okay, let's try this. Make a motion to support this with the caveat that it does not include high earning residents in this directive.
Define. Everything
Okay,
is by
okay,
definition.
all right. High income earners earning more than $150,000.
Per what size household?
Per-
That's true, I was thinking about that. It's not
Per-
150,000.
Depending on family
Would you
size.
wanna say single family households, two person households, single family?
No, I would do.
No?
Single individual making 150,000?
Yeah.
Not earning more than.
That's down to that, that's kind of defeating the purpose.
It's a lot, right?
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm good.
Can we just make it like per, like an average, income, like per household, so if it's 75 for one, then it's 150 for two, and so on, like we agree on like a number like that, maybe, it becomes easier to apply across the board.
We could do it also like the way it is with the screen, that it'll give you, if you can't make, the cap is 50,000, before it used to be 30, then they raised it higher. Because they understand that some of the seniors are aging in place, and then they also cannot afford the high income rents, and then the screen kicks in, so.
So, okay,
I mean,
because I have a
but you need to
question.
define the low income and high income, because
Right.
affordable is like people right now at the court, right?
Yeah.
Some people could afford this whole, absorb all this 198 million, and some can't. And there's a lot of seniors aging in place in these buildings that I know are still living there, and they can't afford it. Judith, she's been a big advocate about this for years. This is not new. This is not new at all.
So 75,000 for household of one, 150,000.
I mean, I just said that as an example. I didn't.
I think
It's gonna be a
that,
household of one, it's just who's in.
I think the danger here is that,
Combining.
I think.
It's gotta be
the-
like per adult, not.
I think the danger
kids.
here is that unless you know what household size and everything is, which we're trying to give we have to think about what the focus is of what this legislation is. And if you wanna write a statement in terms of affordability based on the neighborhood demographics, and if you wanna put the income, then because Scree and Dree have their own, Scree and Dree is over 50.
Cause you got one for the homeowners as well.
Right.
But what does their regulatory agreement says? What does that say?
The regulatory agreement is it 85% of median, of average median income? I think
If
it's
you could share that with us,
153.
I think that will
I
help
think
us a
it's
whole lot with
153.
defining
I will share.
how much we can actually,
I will share
support
that.
this on. Remember, everything is based on the regulatory agreement and what's gonna happen once, you get towards the year that is supposed to then change over.
This is.
That is like crucial, that's like your Bible.
Yeah.
So you need to, if you could share that with us, that would be much better than for us be tossing all this thing
The
around.
regulatory agreement, so you understand.
Okay,
Yeah, it's like 150. I think
but that was created when?
When the building was.
20 years ago.
But the thing is that regulatory agreement has to stand until the life of the building that you say is gonna be
Okay.
30 years down the road, or, when you be financing, then you get a new one, right? So, that's the life of it.
Okay.
So it sounds to me like we don't have consensus here in terms of, we're looking for more information.
Right.
You'll have it in the morning.
Right, and so because we don't have information, unless there is a general motion to support this in, with the understanding that additions will be made or language will be changed, if you wanna do that. If not, then this will, if we wanna carry this to the full board as new business, because I think that the executive committee may meet after the full board. I don't know if I'm wrong about that.
Yeah.
So it sounds to me like, this will have to be new business at the community board. By that time, you'll have submitted, to the board that information. We can come up with some draft language based on for or against,
Right,
whatever.
yeah, I would rewrite this letter and have it for full board new business with
And
that,
then
and we'll take
In
a vote.
advance though, because it's gonna be.
No, it would
Like a
be-
week before.
Right,
Yes.
and so then this way, we would put it on the new business at the full board. Just because it seems like there's a lot of concerns here in terms of affordability and the proper support and the right language. That's not to say we won't support it, but in its current iteration, it sounds like there's more questions that the committee needs answered.
Yeah, so we'll provide that, you'll have it in the morning, I like the idea of focusing on that particular legislation, and we're proposing that, right, because we're not drafters of the legislation
Right.
either. So the representatives will have to, with their legislative director, then they'll have to craft it, but getting your input and however you envision this is really key.
Have other community boards
Just gonna
weighed
say that.
Yeah, we have meetings, they're
I'm also.
so welcoming, so we're meeting with community board 10 and 9.
Okay,
Yes.
all right.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
wanna thank you for your presentation, and I wanna thank you for your openness in supplying us more information so that we can craft it the best way we can, not only to help support you, but to help support this community and the different ranges. So, and I mostly wanna thank you for being so patient and waiting and waiting. So I really wanna thank you.
Thank you for being heroes. I watch your community board meetings. I have the TV over my desk. So if you think there was, I'm watching.
So those 3 YouTube views were one of them? And me and Angel the other one?
So thank you so much. We are now going to move on the budget request submission form. this is always gonna be on our agenda. If you're not familiar with
Thank
it,
you.
thank you. If you're not familiar with it, please click on the link so you can see the kind of questions that are being asked. I don't know if, I tried to look at something today. I don't know if housing got anything. I could have missed it. So with that said, become familiar with and sell it, like tell people, well, if you got something that you want to suggest, please suggest to chair.
On the topic of budget though, I'd advise next month, for the budget consultations in the summer, that you guys think of any questions you'd want to ask the agencies that we submit our budget requests to. And then that way Angel can arrange a meeting in the summer, ideally with whatever agencies we have questions about, and when the leadership of the committee with the budget leadership can sit and ask those questions so that we have a better idea going into the fall with our budget requests moving forward. So I would dedicate a good portion of that next meeting to get those questions down and start thinking about them in the meantime and sending them to NILSA. Look at what our previous budget requests were, look at the responses we've got, consider all new things that aren't on there and just formulate those questions. So that's that, and because we need that by next month so we can start making the invitations for the summer.
So how can we then get some, what I was asking, if I can get in paper form, so I can then go and leave it at, like, let's say at Johnson's, at our housing development sites and other private buildings that can participate, or the Q code that we can put, some kind of a sign that we can get people to participate on their own.
We
And
can
you
ask
just do that
Sage.
with a clickable phone or something.
Well, we can.
But not everybody remember, they're savvy on this stuff, so paper works, and then we could bring it.
A lot of
to-
paper.
Sage could just print it.
Yeah, I was saying QR.
Kill a few
yeah.
trees.
We've killed a
Alright.
lot in the past.
All right, so we're gonna look to do a QR code and.
I'll do that.
Ms. Techie.
No, I know about that, I'm not talking about.
She's talking
me.
about paper.
I'm
and
talking
then-
about the people that would wanna
The paper.
participate, like you have seniors, and they don't, they have to voice their opinion,
So we could
somebody
just-
will write it for them.
I
But
think
these
we could just print
questions,
it.
these, and obviously you can
And
always,
they're simple and quick.
these, obviously, whatever we decide should be informed from the community. But these questions are specifically supposed to be coming from you guys. This isn't about like going, now, if you want to send it to hundreds of, I would be all for that. And then they might come to you and say, these are the questions we want you to ask. These are priorities. But ultimately, also, these are questions that you guys should just be thinking about in terms of, what you're seeing in the community, what you've been hearing, what you've been experiencing. But I'm all for the outreach too. But for this exercise, time is limited. It's something we can look at more moving forward, but the onus is on you guys to at least, I would say, there's three or like HPD, HRA, like NYCHA, you guys should have ideally, I don't know, 3 to 4 really solid questions for each of them to get them in the door, to allow Angel to have a reason to make an appointment with them. And then if other questions come up after that, they can be asked as well. But we need to invite people with like a purpose. Otherwise, they're gonna blow us off,
Okay.
Got you.
And so then next month we can go into more of the budget request submission form, because I guess the idea is to get the consent, to get the idea of what the community needs and wants and what it's looking for the budgets to help support, which would then help to inform the new request, but can also help inform questions. With that, we have new business. We have Assembly Bill A 4957 authorizes the New York City Council to oversee the activities of the New York City Housing Authority. Now, I printed it out and I'm reading it here. There's a lot of it. This was introduced by Gibbs, Taylor, Glick, Reyes, Forrest. And so basically it's looking for New York City Council oversight of NYCHA, right? If you all want to read it, you can click on the link in the agenda. If you feel off the gut that NYCHA needs more oversight and that the city council could be the one to do it, and based on the fact that the presentations we had earlier tonight talked about a whole bunch of violations that they had to fix from NYCHA, the fact that we know at this table of people who don't have cabinets in their apartments for months, or sinks, or pay NYCHA, depending on who they're using, can pay up to $150 to $200 for a hammer. If you think that that warrants, I'm laughing, if you think that that warrants, I like when he smiles, some oversight, then think about if the city council is the proper one to do it. And if you think that they are, and you don't feel that you need to look into anything further, we can discuss and take a position tonight, a motion to support it, if you feel. With that said, I've said enough.
I have mixed feelings about it all.
Yeah, me too.
You know why? Because I can't, everybody really gotta come to the table. The city and the state should actually sit together, not apart, and do one of these, and my idea is better, and no, everybody should actually come to the table. And when they wanna make any resolution or any changes that has to do with NYCHA, that both legislators, right, from city and state, should do a town hall before they make any decision on what the living status of any individual that lives in NYCHA. Like, if you don't live in NYCHA, how can you even make a decision on somebody's living, who should decide to do what? What if this in the city, they'll say, okay, we're gonna use this building, no matter what they say, we're gonna turn it into a park, doesn't matter, like back then. That's a problem. And then the state giving us boiler money, right, just to fix the boilers, and the city is saying no. It's a tug of war that we need to make sure that we hold both legislators accountable to work together, not separate and apart, because this decision, housing, we have a crisis because of that. So the truth of the matter is that NYCHA this should be set an example that everybody has to come to a consensus to work together before anybody wants to have oversight.
But has that happened in the past? And I'm playing devil's advocate.
No, I'm saying that.
And so how would
it's
that
not,
happen?
so this is where we set the tone right now, to
Mhm.
make sure that moving forward, we have both of them.
Right, but this is the New York City
I know, it's
Council overseeing New York City
I
Housing
know.
Authority.
I know.
New York City Housing Authority is federal, right? And a
Mhm.
lot of the monies are federal.
But who's
But-
giving the bulk of what?
The city,
The city is putting in more money than the
absolutely.
state is putting in.
And so this
And
is,
that's the fight that
right,
is
and
going
so
on.
this bill, I'm not arguing for or
No, no,
against
no, no,
it.
no, I'm
I
saying-
just wanna bring to your attention that what the bill is calling for is for the New York City Council to oversee or to help oversee operations or interact with the New York City Housing Authority.
And who decided that the council should oversee us?
This is an assembly bill put together by, some electeds, recommending
The
some
bill is
type
done
of
by-
oversight for NYCHA. So as I'm saying, go ahead.
I mean, I think there's a reason that it would be the council, because they deal more directly with on the city level. So maybe Candy, because I think when we support these things, we can make suggestions, right? We could say, with these caveats. So if you do want there, I guess, to be more collaboration, let's call it, then maybe the city council has this oversight, and then they're required to issue reports to the assembly, to the state senate, to the community board. We could say that, we want a quarterly report into what those oversights, reveal. And so then, which I think will be useful, because the state should be involved and they're responsible for funding for it. So, I mean, my question then is, with that suggestion, because I think if everybody's involved in the actual oversight, then things can get wonky, right? Then it's how much oversight can you do with all these different pieces moving? So I think it made sense for the council to be tasked with that, with the caveat that they have to report to everybody and keep everyone informed. on what that oversight's actually resulting in, what
So-
information, et cetera.
Maybe before they vote on a decision.
So what I
You
wanna
can put that in,
do,
you can put that in.
right, so what I wanna do is actually
Yeah, 'cause I
read,
went to print, yeah.
and what I
I'm
wanna
not
do is
going to that.
actually read what it's saying.
Mm.
And it's a one pager, so I'm gonna
I
try
read
to
it.
read it quick, because I need coffee. So it's introduced by Gibbs, Taylor, Glick, Reyes, Forrest, right? An act to amend the public housing law and the New York City Charter in relation to authorizing the New York City Council to oversee the activities of the New York City Housing Authority. The people of the state of New York, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1, the public housing law is amended by adding a new section 402-H to read as follows. Section 402-H, New York City Council oversight. This is that they want to amend and add this piece. The New York City Council, as established in Section 21 of the New York City Charter, is empowered to mandate that the New York City Housing Authority produce reports about any facets of its operations or the condition of the projects under its management, including any project-based Section 8 voucher developments in which the authority has an ownership stake through the passage of a local law. Such a law shall determine which information is to be included in the report, the deadline for the production of the report, whether the reporting mandate applies once or is recurring, and which local authorities shall receive copies. A copy of any such reports must be provided to the commissioner and shall be considered an agency document for the purposes of Article 6 of the Public Officers Law. Section 2, subdivision of A, Section 29 of the New York City Charter, as added by a vote of the people of the city of New York and at the general election held in November 1989, is amended to read as follows. A, the council acting as a committee of the whole, and each standing or special committee of the council, through hearings or otherwise, may investigate any matters within its jurisdiction relating to the property, affairs, or government of the city or of any county within the city, or any other powers of the council, or to the effectuation of the purposes or provisions of this charter, or any laws relating to the city or any county within the city. Section 2, shall review on a regular and continuous basis the activities of the agencies of the city, including their service goals and performance and management efficiency. Each unit of appropriation in the adopted budget of the city shall be assigned to a standing committee. Each standing committee of the council shall hold at least one hearing each year related to the activities of each of the agencies under its jurisdiction. Section 3, shall review on a regular and continuous basis the activities of the New York City Housing Authority, including the service goals, performance, and management efficiency of such authority. Such authority shall be assigned to a standing committee. Such standing committee of the council shall hold at least one hearing each year relating to the activities of the New York City Housing Authority. Section 3, this act shall take effect on the 30th day after it shall have become a law. That is what this is.
And that's the resolution.
This is it. I took this from the website today. Okay, so technically, the summary is authorizes the New York City Council to oversee the activities of the New York City Housing Authority.
Well, technically, the city council is actually giving money to each, housing authority for, discretionary, which is fair. So if that's the case.
And we can make suggestions or amendments to it. Right, you've talked about that, so the reports could be sent to the affected community boards, borough president, and state electeds, right? That could be one
Right.
amendment.
Okay.
Another amendment could be that it says, I would include all RAD pack conversions into this as well. Also,
Yeah.
so anything that
Because
Nike still owns it.
just make it a law without even consulting with
So
people.
I
It's
think,
just that I have issues with lately, I'm sorry, that
it's
they're
okay.
making these local laws, and then, they're not, it's like, there's some of them, not really, they don't really work to say, like, they're not thinking about the unintended impacts that are really happening. And
So-
it's not, it's already law, what can you fight about?
Right, so I think the first thing this committee should consider is this something that this committee thinks is needed where another group is going to do overseeing of NYCHA? As you know, we had a NYCHA meeting here, and while we heard answers, we don't always hear everything that we need to hear. Right, well, they came, right, wow, right, but, and they,
They
you know, they
should,
came
you
in.
should bring them back so we can all.
Right,
Yeah.
so my question is, I read it out loud. Is this something that this committee wants to consider with any kind of not amendments, but additions to, right? If that's the case, then that's something we need to know now. Does this have a deadline that we know, that they need to know this as soon as possible?
No,
So this is basically us, so do we wanna take a position tonight on this on this with any changes that we need to flesh out more and then bring it next month? Or is this something we wanna just put off till next month? Well, that's what I'm asking, I read it out loud.
you guys can do whatever you want. My only suggestion is if you table it and we come back to this table and nobody has talked about it or done anything till the next time we come back here, then what do we table it for?
Right.
And so that's my concern. It's, so if there's not gonna be a commitment to actually drafting something in advance of the meeting for everyone to review, then we're just gonna be back here again. And then we'll maybe take a position next month that is just as, we don't feel just as comfortable as we do right now. So, that's my only,
Well, what we have to realize also is, as a committee, that we have to make comments, or we should, right, on legislation. Because if not, then all we're doing here is hearing presentations. So whether you agree or you don't agree, I'd rather hear something than for us to, I'll use the word wishy-washy, be wishy-washy about this and saying,
Yeah.
nobody's saying that whatever position we take has to be perfect. Nobody is saying that our position will even matter, right? The question is whether we as a community board and as a housing committee wish to comment. If we decide that we don't want to comment, then we have to realize that what our role is. For a long time, our role has been where we just hear presentations and we comment. And then when people come into this community or we don't hear the answers that we want to hear, then we're like, well, why aren't we getting these answers? But we also, when legislation is put for or against, depending on whatever we can, if we don't have an opinion, then we're not in the room. So I'm not saying that we have to have perfect consensus, whatever it is, or if we want to table it, then we have to be prepared to do something. But if that's not what we're gonna do here, then we have to realize what our role is. And then our role is just being informed that.
I wanna read more into it. I think she had an input.
Tamika?
Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. For me, it just gives me pause because NYCHA already have, oversight issues. If you look at the public hearings when the city council grills NYCHA and asks for reports, they're delayed. They never get there. They're always saying that they have money left over for capital repairs, but meanwhile, they're selling our developments to get capital repair money. So that's the only thing that gives me pause of it, is no real oversight in that. So we just add in another layer to push the blame from the state back to the city. So the state can say, you know what, I gave it to the city, they handle it, good luck with that. I think, money when it comes to Section 9, federal, state, and city has a bucket to play in. And I think as, individuals at the state, they should be held to the fire for the stuff that they release to the city and actually check them. And so it should be rewriting that the state will have the complete oversight to make sure that the city council is grilling the city agencies for spending our money wisely and not misusing it and just sitting there.
But that's what's happening now. This is the issue. You just exactly just said what's happening now and that should happen. If the city council doesn't have oversight, and I'm not advocating for it to have oversight, but if the city council doesn't have oversight, then it can only be a questioning body, right? They're not giving answers to anybody, right? Like we had NYCHA come and we had a room full of people who came just to give us information, and they haven't been back since.
And they have reached out many times.
And but so you see, so if we need to come up with a strategy based on what you're saying, then we need to come up with that strategy so we can figure out how to put that pressure.
Yeah.
I'm not advocating for or against this. What I'm saying is, do we need to consider if NYCHA needs another layer? If NYCHA needs another layer because the federal and the state is not working, is the city council the right person or the right body? If it is, what are the expectations of it? If they already have oversight and they're not answering, then how can we get that pressure put on so we can get the answers so that they don't do what you just said? So there's a lot, you see what I mean? There's a lot there.
Christopher Banks, who is the public housing chair, does a very good job of
That's it.
cornering NYCHA to produce what he feels that need to produce. I just feel that when a city council person, whoever's new, should get a recap of actually reading the 964 regs, so they can really truly understand how NYCHA is governed. So when they go to the city council hearing, they don't say, you know, how's the garbage cans? They can actually hold NYCHA accountable. So maybe we need to put some language in there. that
So
says
maybe that's
we need
a
our
suggestion.
reports within a timely manner of how many elevators is broken, how much mold is in the house, and all that jazz.
Right.
Maybe having or crafting questions for a city council member to ask at the public housing hearing would be a great start.
Okay, so
But
that's a good suggestion.
that's not what, this is like not telling city council what questions to go ask at a hearing. This is saying you can pass local laws to enforce your oversight. So you're not just asking questions and then they can just blow you off. You could say, here's a local law, you're required to report this, and if you don't, there are these consequences. So, I mean, if we're gonna sit around here and wait to decide when the city council knows when or when not to ask questions and what types of questions, we have a bigger problem, and we'll never really know that. I mean, are we going to be able to sit here and inform what questions city council members ask at hearings? So then, I think we're going down a rabbit hole. I'm not telling you guys what to support or not to support. I totally agree this got put on new business. All I'll say is this, if we're gonna do our homework, then I expect to see some emails sent to the chair with your comments and stuff. If we just come back at this table and people, if people say they want to do homework and they didn't do that, then I am gonna be like, well, then, you know, what are we doing? So I'm all for you guys taking your time, doing the homework and coming back with something, suggestions, or whatever you might feel more comfortable. I would really like, for these reasons, now we don't want to support this, right? I think that's fine.
And so with that said, because it sounds like we have a lot of questions, I read it, I suggest you read it for yourself and make any margin notes and anything like that. And what you anticipate, one of the things is when you say oversight of NYCHA from city council, what does that entail in your mind? So that you're specific in anything that you supported or you don't support it for the following reasons. So everyone, that's everyone's task. If you go to the agenda on the website, you have a live link, you'll be able to get there. The last one is the resolution 0024-2026. Resolution calls upon the New York State Legislature and the governor to provide their share of the additional $3 billion annually that must be reinvested into NYCHA in order to address capital needs. Okay, so again, you're asking this resolution, so I want us to be clear. Yeah, this resolution is asking for the additional $3 billion annually. On the face, that's great, if NYCHA spends it correctly. And so who is going to oversee, or how are the answers that you're gonna get? That goes back to Tamika's question, to make sure that these are correct. So if we are gonna do our homework, you can click on it, or if you feel on its face that the resolution just calls that you support the 3 billion given, then I'm here to listen. You know what I mean? Like, or is this something that needs to be discussed?
More money for NYCHA?
No.
Yeah, but they
No,
keep
no,
just
no.
messing up the money anyway.
They got money
Well, you
to
could
fund.
couple this, right? This is just a
Right.
resolution. This isn't really forcing anyone to do anything. You could support this and then say you guys come back next month with the bill. You could make suggestions if you're for that, that would actually then enforce how this was used or overseen. But so, I mean, but whether it's spent exactly how you want it or not, it is still $3 billion more you're asking for NYCHA, which is better than zero. Right, so I mean, I guess that's how you have to look at it to some extent.
But I think that we should also put in like, with those $3 billion to, see, cause the management is supposed to sit with the resident association meeting. You know, I can tell you, and they're supposed to sit down and show us their budget for the year in every housing development. What they have for repairs, what is the amount of money that is budgeted and allocated. And that's not even including with the full occupancy, because that's where they get their CPA funds. But, you know, if we can go over that with the condition that that is mandated, that they sit down management with every single resident leaders and associations, letting them know, this is how much we got to spend for the whole year. This is what is allocated to get your cabinets fixed. This is how much money we have allocated, and that's, I think that, you know, allocating and itemizing and speaking out loud, being transparent about what's the budget in each housing development, working internally, but at the same time, you know, we're on the community board, right? So we put, housing at least should be privy to understand and see what is the budget that every building is having. Maybe I'm asking for too much, but I'm just throwing it out.
You can ask for it.
Okay, I just feel like then it should be crafted that we, you know, we should know what is the health, the financial health of each housing residency before they start selling them off. You know, because let's say Lincoln Houses is doing great. They don't have so much of a big budget gap because let's say hypothetically, I'm just making it, they have revenues coming in from the commercial spaces that they're getting money from. Right? They have the full vacancy, there aren't any, you know, there aren't any vacancies except the hospitality apartments, right? So then that means that they have more money in their pockets to help them move things around. All that kind of stuff is not a one size fit all in every housing development. You know, so I think that we should be informed and have that information like that.
Right, but this is asking
For
to
where the
provide
money,
their share of the additional $3 billion annually
and it's,
that must be reinvested into NYCHA in order to address capital needs. So those points, if those are additional points, then those points should be brought to next month's meeting, because whether you vote for this, you know, and you say we support it, with the proviso that NYCHA is transparent in its funding per development, that the community boards are informed of the relative budgets, the annual budgets for each of their respective NYCHA. You know what I mean? So the focus is, should NYCHA get that money? If NYCHA should get that money, what are the conditions and to ensure that NYCHA uses that money responsibly? That be, you know, the PAC rat stuff, while it's important and we should include it, it's gotta be included in such a way to prevent them to going into their program if enough monies are put in to prevent development to going into PAC rat. Because the honest truth is that the buildings that are going into PAC rat will never see the improvements under NYCHA. When you have buildings that excrement is coming out of the kitchen sink, and I saw this myself, okay, on 111th Street and First Avenue, okay? That was a crime and a shame what those people were going through, and PAC rat was a godsend. for what those people were going through year after year after year. So we have to be clear that in some instances, NYCHA is never gonna put in the money because they're never gonna have enough. It's like the MTA. How much money do we have to keep throwing at the MTA and they still can't get it right? So I'm saying, whatever we're gonna decide, right? Let's think about, we are all fairly seasoned community members who have different experiences. And we're lucky that we have people like Tamika and stuff that are willing to come in here and give and share. So think about it, right? That's all I'm asking. Everybody has the link. Chair, and then we're gonna
Last thing,
close off the
so
meeting.
you, for example, with the last bill, right? We can propose local laws to our local elected to consider. So one of those could be, for example, that NYCHA is required to have some level of transparency with how they're allocating money at developments. What I will say again is, if we were to start getting that far ahead, which is the goal here, in order to get them to listen to us, we're going to have to start supporting them when it makes sense and not dragging it out. We should be building these relationships quickly and fast. And so this is a resolution. It's not even really going to be able to make it happen right away. It's just asking for more money, and it's showing, like, whichever elected is on that we're supporting you. And so if we start to show them we support them with these things that I think we obviously want, no, they might not be perfect, but then we'll have the ability to inform those things and start a dialogue and relationship that, to be honest with you, we don't have a very close relationship there. And I think a lot of that is just because we haven't done the things we need to do to give our voice to these things. I mean, the community board should be issuing these things regularly, not for the sake of it. But there's a lot of stuff out there that we have not commented on, that we've not taken positions on, and we could be doing this regularly. And I figured we'd start with things like this because I saw them as more low-hanging fruit and straightforward things that we could kind of just get under our belt as we go into other things. So that's
Of course, and I think that
Yep.
our elected officials should sit with us and discuss, have a dialogue with us about this as well. And then this way we can we're supporting them, but at the same time, they get to hear our feedback, and maybe they can craft their resolution a little bit more stronger or some type of way.
Well, in our
But at
letter,
least
we
having
can
our
say
input
those things,
on
though.
it,
You can
understand?
put that in the letter.
What I mean is them also coming to talk to us about that.
We have to start somewhere.
I think to go back to what you're saying, you're absolutely right. But they're not gonna come here because they don't think that we're involved enough. And so what ends up happening, right? So what ends up
We do.
happening is that I always, and I'm gonna leave everybody with this thought unless someone wants to then change their mind, because
Yeah, they can't.
you need to have something, I hate to say it like this, over someone's head to force them to come to the table. And if it's that we're supporting them, right? Everybody has a different responsibility here. And so this meeting has really gone over long. And so I wanna apologize, it's a productive meeting, but I wanna apologize to those that have things that they have to get to and they're still here. If I'm not involved with something, then I can't comment on it. If we're district leaders here, or we are involved in some kind of community leadership, they should automatically come here. It shouldn't be a Tamika, right? It could be a Tamika. I'm always happy to see Tamika, right? Wherever I go, I'm happy to see Tamika. But what I'm saying is Adriano SPI. Well, you have someone running against you. I would have thought you would have come to this board right now, right?
Yeah.
But yet, people that I know that are close to you, and I keep saying, well, why hasn't he come to the board? Don't come when you need a vote. People are tired of me here saying that, right? So how are we gonna make our voices heard? We're all intelligent, so how do we make our voices heard? Is it by honey and then the vinegar? Or is it vinegar and people still not coming? And so now you never have a chance for the honey because they just figure that we contrarians? That's something for me just to just say. If there's no change at the table, then we won't, and we'll do it next month. If you want to read the resolution, please do so. I neglected to print that one out because I thought it was just the other one, so I don't have it with me to prep, and it's been a long evening. So if there's no, like I said, it seems like a no-brainer. You want to support money for NYCHA because you know what the residents are going through.
Right.
But if you want to do your homework,
We want them to be accountable every dollar that they get.
right? So, but if we're doing that next month, we're doing it next month, right? Like, next month will be June,
That's why, and then after that.
right?
yeah.
Next month will be June. And then we have to evaluate in our minds and maybe written what we've actually accomplished this year. And I want to tell you that it's been my pleasure to be your chair from January. I don't know, I will be terming off. I think that's the right word.
Next year.
I will be leaving in 2027,
Okay.
right? So we need to make sure that this committee is as strong as it needs to be with the right leadership and those who are willing to ask questions and not just take answers because they're given to us, especially with the stuff that we see. And so I thought all the questions that were asked tonight were really great. I thank you for your interest and for your tolerance and for your patience. And if there is nothing that's gonna change that resolution, I see your hand, Tamika, I promise. Then we're going to, after Tamika's comment, we're gonna call the roll with the understanding that we have work to do so that next time we're gonna actually come up to consensus one way or another with this stuff, with whatever solutions you have. Tamika?
Yeah, I just have a new business to bring up, sub-metering. I
Okay.
don't know if you heard of that, but 1295 Fifth Avenue, 1890, 1990 is having sub-meters. So what happens is their landlord is overcharging for electricity. The cap's supposed to be 12 cents, but they're getting charged 31 cents, and they need support. So can we
Okay.
bring that to the table for next month?
So what I think that we can bring it up next month, but I will also suggest that you go to the executive committee.
Okay.
Because this goes across all committees, not just housing,
Okay.
because if you're paying too much in energy,
Yeah,
you can't feed your kids,
yes, okay.
right? So definitely, the chair of executive is here. I will defer to him because he sets his agenda for his committee, but definitely next month, we'll definitely have it here. But if you'd like to talk to all the committee chairs at one time, he's your guy,
Okay, perfect.
all right? And so with that said, I'm going to have Angel call the roll.
Marie Charles,
Present.
James Gray. Present. John Green. Stina Johnson,
Present.
Nelson Rama,
Present.
Don Sanders.
Present.
Vasquez.
Okay, this meeting is adjourned at 9:34. Thank you all for your participation. Have